The people most capable of controlling you in old age are often not strangers. They are the children you raised, sacrificed for, and still feel responsible for. They may not use force. They may use guilt, fear, loneliness, money, or your need to feel loved. And if you do not recognize these weaknesses, you can spend your final years apologizing, paying, obeying, and suffering just to keep peace. In this video, you will learn the 5 weaknesses adult children can use against aging parents, and the Buddhist wisdom that helps you protect your dignity without hatred, cruelty, or guilt. 1. Do not let guilt become the price of being a parent. One of the easiest weaknesses to use against an aging parent is guilt. Guilt is powerful because it does not always arrive as an open demand. Sometimes it comes through a disappointed face. Sometimes it comes through silence. Sometimes it comes through comparison. Sometimes it comes through words that make you question your entire life as a parent. You never helped me enough. You helped my brother more than me. If you really loved me, you would do this. You have money. Why are you being selfish? After everything I am going through, how can you say no? You are my parent. Who else am I supposed to ask? These words can enter the heart like arrows, because parents carry memories their children cannot see. You remember your mistakes. You remember the times you were impatient. You remember the days when work consumed your energy and you came home too tired to listen. You remember when your child wanted your attention, but your mind was somewhere else. You remember the things you could not afford. You remember the school event you missed. You remember the angry words you wish you could take back. You remember moments when fear, stress, exhaustion, or ignorance caused you to behave in ways you now regret. You remember arguments that ended badly. You remember times when you compared one child with another. You remember decisions you made with limited knowledge. You remember moments when you wish you had been softer, wiser, calmer, and more understanding. And because you remember these things, your adult child may not even need to accuse you directly. Sometimes, your own mind does the work for them. A simple request comes, and immediately your memory opens old wounds. You begin thinking, maybe I owe them. You think, perhaps I should say yes, because I was not always there. You think, maybe this is my chance to repair the past. You think, maybe refusing now would prove that I failed them again. This is where guilt becomes dangerous. It takes a present decision and connects it to every regret you have ever carried. It makes a financial request feel like a judgment on your entire parenthood. It makes one boundary feel like evidence that you never loved enough. But listen carefully. Making mistakes as a parent does not mean you owe your adult children unlimited access to your money, your home, your time, your body, or your emotional energy for the rest of your life. No parent is perfect. No childhood is perfect. No family is without wounds. Every parent makes mistakes because every parent is a human being carrying their own fear, conditioning, pain, confusion, and limitations. You were learning while you were raising them. You may have become a parent before you understood yourself. You may have been carrying wounds from your own childhood. You may have lacked emotional support. You may have been under financial pressure. You may have believed that providing food and shelter was enough because that was all your parents gave you. This does not erase harm, but it gives context. There is an important difference between understanding your mistakes and using them as a weapon against yourself. If you caused genuine harm, take responsibility for what you did. Do not hide behind age. Do not say, I am your parent, so you must forget everything. Do not deny what happened simply because remembering it makes you uncomfortable. If an apology is needed, offer it honestly. Say, I understand that I hurt you. Say, I did not handle that well. Say, I cannot change the past, but I can listen now. Change what can still be changed. Listen when listening is appropriate. A sincere apology can be powerful, but responsibility and lifelong submission are not the same thing. Taking responsibility does not mean surrendering every boundary. Apologizing does not mean handing over your savings. Acknowledging the past does not mean accepting disrespect in the present. Repairing a relationship does not mean becoming available for every demand. Guilt says, because I failed once, I must surrender forever. Wisdom says, I acknowledge the past, but I will act skillfully in the present. This distinction is essential. The Buddhist path does not ask you to spend your life punishing yourself for what has already happened. The past exists now as memory. The future exists now as imagination. The only place where wise action is possible is here. Now, you cannot return to the past and become the parent you wish you had been. You cannot undo every mistake. You cannot rewrite every conversation. You cannot give your child a perfect childhood after they have already become an adult. But you can meet the present moment with honesty. You can choose not to repeat old patterns. You can choose compassion without fear. You can choose generosity without abandoning discernment. You can choose boundaries without hatred. That is the work available to you now. If your adult child asks you for something, do not answer from the frightened parent inside you. Do not answer from the part of you that is desperate to erase the past. Do not immediately ask, will they be angry if I say no? Do not ask, will they think I am a bad parent? Do not ask, what will the family say? Ask a better question. Is this actually helpful? That question changes everything. It moves you away from fear and toward wisdom. Suppose your adult son repeatedly spends irresponsibly and comes to you every month for money. He says he is struggling. He sounds worried. He tells you the situation is urgent. You feel compassion. You remember the times when you could not give him what he wanted as a child. So you transfer the money. For a few days, you feel relief. He is calm. You are calm. The conflict disappears, but next month, the same request returns. Then again, and again. At some point, you must ask whether your help is actually helping. Giving him money may feel compassionate. But what if your giving allows the irresponsibility to continue? What if every rescue teaches him that consequences are optional? What if he never learns to manage money because you always absorb the cost of his decisions? What if your fear of his anger is helping him avoid maturity? Then your generosity may not be wisdom, it may be attachment disguised as kindness. This is difficult to accept because parents often measure love by how much pain they are willing to absorb. They think, a good parent never lets the child suffer. But adult suffering is not always something you should remove. Sometimes suffering is the teacher that reveals the need to change. If you constantly remove every consequence, you may also remove the lesson. True compassion considers the long-term result of an action. A child may want immediate relief. A wise parent must sometimes consider growth, and growth is often uncomfortable. A son who is rescued every month may feel loved in the moment, but he may remain dependent for years. A daughter whose every crisis is solved may feel supported, but she may never develop confidence in her own strength. A child who is protected from every consequence may never understand responsibility. Sometimes love gives. Sometimes love waits. Sometimes love says, I believe you can find a solution. Sometimes love says, I will not rescue you from this again. That may sound harsh to someone who is used to being rescued, but harshness and firmness are not the same thing. You must also understand that guilt is powerful because it attacks your identity. You do not want to be called a bad mother. You do not want to be called a selfish father. You do not want your children telling relatives that you refuse to help. You do not want to imagine them resenting you. You do not want to hear, after everything, this is how you treat your own child. These words are powerful because they threaten the image you have spent your life trying to protect. You want to be seen as loving, generous, available, sacrificing, good. You want your children to remember you with gratitude. You want them to say, my mother was always there for me. You want them to say, my father never abandoned me. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be remembered with love, but when your entire identity depends on being seen as a good parent, you can be controlled by anyone willing to threaten that identity. This is attachment. You are attached not only to your children, you are attached to the image of yourself inside their minds. You are attached to their approval. You are attached to the idea that they must always understand you. You are attached to the hope that they will never accuse you of selfishness. And because you want that image preserved, you may betray your own wisdom. You may give money you need for medicine. You may allow adult children to live in your home without contributing. You may tolerate rude behavior. You may cancel your own plans whenever they call. You may remain silent when they pressure you. You may keep solving problems that are not yours. You may say yes while your body, mind, and heart are saying no. This is not freedom. The path of non-attachment asks something difficult of you. Can you remain peaceful even when someone misunderstands you? Can you make a wise decision even when your child calls it selfish? Can you tolerate temporary disappointment without rushing to remove it? Can you allow another adult to have an opinion about you without making that opinion the ruler of your life? Can you accept that sometimes people will tell a story in which you are the villain? This is inner freedom. Inner freedom does not mean you become cold. It means you stop abandoning yourself every time someone becomes upset. Your adult children are allowed to be disappointed. They are allowed to disagree. They are allowed to wish you had made another decision. They are allowed to feel angry. Their emotions belong to them. You can listen respectfully without obeying every emotion they express. Their disappointment is not automatically evidence that you have done something wrong. Sometimes people become angry because a genuine injustice occurred. That deserves reflection. But sometimes people become angry because a privilege they were accustomed to receiving has been removed. That anger does not prove the boundary is wrong. Sometimes it proves the boundary was overdue. Imagine that you have always said yes. You have always provided money. You have always changed your schedule. You have always accepted last-minute requests. The first time you say no, the reaction may be strong. They may accuse you of changing. And perhaps you have changed. Perhaps you have become more aware. Perhaps you have realized that your fear has been controlling you. Perhaps you have finally understood that love without boundaries has created resentment. Change is not always betrayal. Sometimes change is awakening. Before saying yes because of guilt, give yourself time. Do not answer immediately. Say, I need to think about it. Say, I will give you an answer tomorrow. Say, let me consider what I can realistically do. This pause is important because guilt demands speed. Manipulation often creates urgency. It says, decide now. It says, if you loved me, you would not need time. But wisdom is rarely afraid of a pause. Use that time to observe your mind. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid they will stop calling? Are you afraid they will keep the grandchildren away? Are you afraid they will tell others you are selfish? Are you afraid of being alone? Are you afraid they will say you never loved them? Are you afraid that saying no will confirm your worst beliefs about yourself? Look directly at the fear. Do not run from it, because the fear beneath the guilt is often the real chain. The guilt may say, I owe them, but the fear says, without their approval, I am nothing. The guilt may say, I should help, but the fear says, if I do not help, I may lose them. The guilt may say, a good parent always gives, but the fear says, if I stop giving, I may discover that they only come when they need something. This is painful, but seeing clearly is the beginning of freedom. Once you see the chain, you can begin to loosen it. You can choose from awareness instead of fear. You can say, I love you, but I cannot do this. You can say, I am willing to help in this way, but not in that way. You can say, I understand that you are disappointed, but my decision remains the same. You can say, I am sorry for the mistakes I made in the past, but I will not use money to buy forgiveness. That last sentence is important. Money cannot purchase healing. Constant sacrifice cannot erase old wounds. If a relationship requires genuine repair, then repair must come through honesty, listening, accountability, and changed behavior. It cannot be purchased through endless financial support. Some parents spend years trying to buy back the love they fear they lost. They give gifts, they pay debts, they transfer property, they provide free childcare, they say yes to every request. But beneath the generosity is a silent hope. Now will you forgive me? Now will you love me? Now will you stop being angry? This is not generosity, it is bargaining. And when love becomes a bargain, suffering grows. You raised your children, you gave what you knew how to give. You made mistakes because you are human. You may have failed them in certain moments. They may also misunderstand some of the sacrifices you made. Both things can be true. You can regret your mistakes without becoming a servant to them. You can apologize without surrendering your dignity. You can offer support without becoming responsible for every problem. You can love without proving your love through exhaustion. Do not spend the final chapter of your life paying an emotional debt with no ending. Some debts can never be fully repaid because they are not truly debts. They are wounds, and wounds need understanding, not endless payment. Make peace where peace is possible. Repair what can be repaired. Listen where listening is needed. Change what still can be changed. But do not confuse self-punishment with love. Love is not destroying your security to avoid being judged. Love is not tolerating manipulation because you feel ashamed. Love is not surrendering your peace every time your adult child expresses anger. Real love contains wisdom. Real love contains truth. Real love sometimes says no, and when that no comes from clarity rather than revenge, it can be one of the most compassionate words you ever speak. 2. Do not let your fear of loneliness make you accept disrespect. The second weakness adult children may use against an aging parent is the fear of being alone. This fear becomes stronger for many people as they grow older. The world becomes quieter. The house may feel emptier. Friends move away. Some friends become ill. Some pass away. A spouse may die. The body may become weaker. Driving may become difficult. Social gatherings may become less frequent. The phone may ring less often than it once did. And gradually, your adult children may begin to feel like your final connection to family, belonging, and emotional security. You may begin thinking, if I upset them, who will I have left? You may think, what if they stop visiting? What if they stop calling? What if they leave me alone during illness? What if they keep the grandchildren away? What if I spend the rest of my life with nobody? These fears are understandable. They are not signs of weakness in the ordinary sense. They come from attachment, uncertainty, grief, and the natural human need for connection. But when fear begins making your decisions, it becomes dangerous. Because once another person realizes that you are terrified of losing them, they possess enormous power over you. They may not even consciously plan to manipulate you. Sometimes, people simply learn what they can get away with. They learn that if they raise their voice, you will become quiet. They learn that if they threaten to leave, you will give in. They learn that if they stop calling for several days, you will panic and apologize, even when you did nothing wrong. They learn that your fear is stronger than your boundary. And slowly, the relationship changes. You stop speaking honestly. You stop expressing discomfort. You tolerate behavior that wounds you. You remain silent because silence feels safer than rejection. Your adult child speaks disrespectfully, and you tell yourself, at least they are still speaking to me. They cancel plans repeatedly, and you tell yourself, I should not complain, or they may stop visiting altogether. They call only when they need money, help, or childcare, and you tell yourself, at least they called. They enter your home without asking. They interrupt your rest. They mock your opinions. They dismiss your feelings. They speak to you as if you are foolish, outdated, inconvenient, or burdensome. And because you fear being left alone, you accept it. This is where loneliness becomes a weapon. Not because being alone is always unbearable, but because you have convinced yourself that any relationship is better than no relationship. You begin believing that bad company is safer than solitude. But is it? There is a form of loneliness that comes from being physically alone. You sit in a quiet room. There is nobody speaking. Nobody visits. The silence feels heavy. This loneliness can be painful. But there is another form of loneliness that is often much deeper. It is the loneliness of being surrounded by people who do not truly value you. You can sit at a table with your children and feel invisible. You can be inside a full house and feel that nobody is interested in your heart. You can have a phone filled with family contacts and still feel that nobody calls unless they need something. You can hear laughter in the next room and still feel completely excluded. You can spend time with your children and leave feeling smaller than before. This kind of loneliness is especially painful because the body is not alone, but the heart is. You are present, but not respected, included, but not seen, needed, but not loved in a healthy way. This is why the answer to loneliness cannot simply be proximity. Being near people is not enough. The quality of the relationship matters. The state of your own mind matters. The way you treat yourself when nobody is present matters. Buddhist practice teaches us to examine our dependence on external conditions for inner peace. If your peace exists only when your children are pleased with you, your peace is fragile. If your sense of worth depends on how often they visit, your worth is fragile. If your emotional stability depends on receiving a daily phone call, your stability is fragile. If one angry message can destroy your entire day, then your inner life is being controlled from outside. This does not mean you should stop caring. It does not mean you should pretend that loneliness does not hurt. It means you must stop making another person the sole keeper of your emotional survival. No human relationship is permanent. This is not a threat. It is reality. People change. Circumstances change. Bodies age. Families move. Relationships become closer and more distant. The Buddhist teaching of impermanence is not meant to make us cold. It is meant to help us love without clinging so tightly that change destroys us. If you believe your children must remain close in exactly the way you want, fear will grow. And when fear grows, you may surrender your dignity to preserve the relationship. You may begin accepting words that should not be accepted. You may accept being shouted at. You may accept being insulted. You may accept constant criticism. You may accept being ignored until someone needs something. You may accept being treated like a servant in your own home. You may allow your children to discuss your finances as though you are not present. You may allow them to make decisions about your life without asking you. You may tolerate all of this because part of you says, do not make trouble. You need them. But needing support does not mean you must accept humiliation. Depending on someone in certain areas does not give them permission to mistreat you. Age does not remove your dignity. Needing help does not cancel your right to respect. You can be vulnerable and still have boundaries. You can need assistance and still say, do not speak to me that way. You can love someone and still end a conversation when it becomes abusive. You can be grateful for support without becoming emotionally submissive. This distinction matters. Some older parents feel ashamed of needing help. They believe their dependence means they have lost the right to object. They think, my daughter drives me to appointments, so I should remain quiet when she insults me. They think, my son pays some of my bills, so I should not complain when he controls my decisions. They think, I live in their house, so I must accept anything. Gratitude is important, but gratitude does not require self-erasure. A favor does not purchase ownership of another human being. Support does not give anyone the right to humiliate you. The fear of loneliness can also make you chase people. You call repeatedly. You send messages and then watch the phone. You ask, are you angry with me? You apologize without understanding what you supposedly did. You invite yourself into every plan. You agree with everything because disagreement feels risky. You give more than you can afford because generosity seems like a way to remain necessary. You may even exaggerate illness or create small crises because attention feels better than silence. This is difficult to admit, but honesty is necessary. Sometimes aging parents are not only victims of fear. Sometimes fear causes them to become controlling, demanding, or emotionally dependent. You may expect your children to call every day. You may feel betrayed when they spend time with their spouses. You may resent their work, travel, friendships, or responsibilities. You may say, "You have forgotten me," when they are simply living their adult lives. You may use illness, sacrifice, or age to pull them closer. This is also attachment. And if you want respect, you must examine your own behavior honestly. A healthy relationship cannot be built on their fear of disappointing you, any more than it can be built on your fear of abandonment. Both sides need space. Both sides need responsibility. So ask yourself carefully, am I accepting genuine disrespect because I fear loneliness? Or am I calling normal independence disrespect because I fear losing control? These are not the same thing. A child having their own life is not abandonment. A child disagreeing with you is not necessarily disrespect. A child saying no to a request is not always rejection. A child needing space is not always punishment. You must distinguish between healthy separation and harmful treatment. This requires calm observation. If your son cannot visit every weekend because of work, that may be reality. If your daughter refuses to answer 10 calls a day, she may be setting a reasonable boundary. But if they mock you, threaten you, exploit you, shout at you, or repeatedly treat you as though your feelings do not matter, that is different. Do not confuse the two. Wisdom sees clearly. Fear exaggerates. Resentment distorts. Attachment makes everything personal. The goal is not to become suspicious of your children. The goal is to stop lying to yourself. If you are being disrespected, admit it. If you are being overly demanding, admit that too. The truth may be uncomfortable, but truth creates the possibility of change. Once you see the situation clearly, the next step is to stop allowing fear to decide your response. You may need to say, "I love you, but I will not continue this conversation while you are speaking to me this way." This sentence is not cruel. It is clear. You may need to say, "We can discuss this when both of us are calmer." You may need to say, "You are welcome in my home, but not if you insult me." You may need to say, "I appreciate your help, but I still need to be included in decisions about my life." You may need to end the phone call. You may need to leave the room. You may need to reduce contact for a time, not as revenge, not to punish them, not to create drama, but to protect the conditions necessary for respectful communication. A boundary is not a threat. A boundary is information. It says, "This is what I will participate in. This is what I will not participate in. This is how I expect to be treated. This is what I will do if the behavior continues." The important part is consistency. If you say, "I will end the call if you shout," but then remain on the phone for another hour, the boundary loses meaning. If you say, "Do not come without calling, but always open the door without objection," nothing changes. If you say, "I will not lend money again, but surrender after 3 angry messages," the pattern becomes stronger. People learn from what you repeatedly permit. This is not only true for children, it is true in every relationship. A boundary that is never enforced becomes a request for mercy. And when fear is present, enforcement becomes difficult. Your mind will say, "What if this is the last time they call? What if they never forgive me? What if I die alone?" These thoughts may feel unbearable, but you must examine them rather than obey them. Are you reacting to what is happening now? Or are you reacting to an imagined future? The mind creates extreme outcomes. One disagreement becomes permanent abandonment. One boundary becomes the end of the family. One missed visit becomes proof that nobody loves you. This is how fear works. It takes uncertainty and turns it into catastrophe. Mindfulness helps you return to what is actually true. Your child is upset. That is true. You have set a boundary. That is true. You do not know what will happen next. That is also true. Do not fill the unknown with the worst possible story. Sit with the uncertainty. Breathe. Let the mind protest. You do not need to solve the entire future tonight. You only need to act wisely in the present. This is where solitude becomes an important teacher. Many people fear solitude because they have never learned how to be with themselves. The moment the room becomes quiet, the mind becomes loud. Regrets appear. Fear appears. Old memories appear. You begin searching for distraction. You turn on the television. You call someone. You check the phone repeatedly. You look for any sign that you still matter. But solitude can become something other than punishment. It can become practice. You can learn to sit without immediately escaping. You can drink tea without needing noise. You can walk slowly and notice the world. You can read. You can meditate. You can pray or reflect according to your tradition. You can care for plants. You can write. You can reconnect with old friends. You can join a community. You can volunteer. You can learn something new. You can build a life that is not completely dependent on one relationship. This is not about replacing your children. It is about expanding your world so that fear has less control. When your entire emotional life rests on one person, every small change feels dangerous. When your life contains several sources of meaning, one difficult relationship no longer has the power to destroy everything. You may still feel lonely at times. Do not expect complete freedom from loneliness. That is unrealistic. The aim is not to eliminate every painful feeling. The aim is to stop letting painful feelings force you into harmful choices. You can feel lonely without calling someone who repeatedly humiliates you. You can miss your children without offering money to buy their attention. You can feel sadness without surrendering a boundary. You can wish for closeness without begging for scraps of affection. This is emotional maturity. The Buddha did not teach that freedom means never feeling pain. Freedom means not becoming enslaved by the reaction to pain. Loneliness may arise. You observe it. You feel it in the body. Perhaps there is heaviness in the chest. Perhaps there is restlessness. Perhaps the mind begins telling stories. Instead of immediately chasing someone, you stay present. You say inwardly, loneliness is here. Not, I am worthless. Not, nobody loves me. Not, I will always be alone. Simply, loneliness is here. Feelings change when they are not constantly fed by stories. They rise. They remain for a time. They pass. This is impermanence. The pain may return, but every time you observe it without abandoning yourself, you become stronger. You begin to discover that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. You can be alone and still be connected to life. You can be alone and still have dignity. You can be alone and still experience peace. You can be alone and still be complete. This realization reduces the power of manipulation. When you are no longer terrified of solitude, threats of distance lose some of their control. You do not become careless. You still value the relationship. You still want harmony, but you no longer sacrifice everything to prevent someone from leaving. This is non-attachment. Non-attachment does not say, I do not need anyone. That can become another form of pride. Non-attachment says, I value your presence, but I will not lose myself to keep it. It says, I love you, but I cannot control whether you stay. It says, I will treat you with kindness, and I will also expect basic respect. It says, I am open to closeness, but I will not purchase closeness with submission. This is the middle path. You do not cling desperately. You do not push everyone away. You remain open without becoming defenseless. You remain loving without becoming easily controlled. You remain connected without making another person the owner of your peace. You may worry that setting boundaries will make your children distant. Sometimes it may. This is a hard truth. Not every relationship becomes healthier immediately when boundaries appear. Some people value you. Others value access. When access changes, their behavior reveals the difference. A child who truly loves you may still become angry. They may resist at first. They may need time. But over time, healthy relationships can adapt to honest boundaries. A relationship based mainly on what you provide may weaken when you stop providing it. This discovery can be painful, but false closeness is not the same as love. Attention that exists only while you are useful is not secure. You deserve to know what is real. Do not deliberately test people. Do not become suspicious of every request. Simply stop using fear to maintain what cannot survive truth. If the relationship changes, grieve honestly. Do not pretend it does not hurt. But do not run back into exploitation simply because reality is painful. Painful truth is still more useful than comforting illusion. You must also build support before a crisis comes. Do not wait until conflict leaves you isolated. Strengthen healthy friendships. Speak with relatives who respect you. Participate in community life. Create routines outside your children. Seek professional support when emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or serious family conflict is present. There is no wisdom in suffering silently simply because the person hurting you is family. Family ties are important, but family does not cancel ethics. A child is still responsible for how they behave. A parent is still responsible for how they behave. Love does not remove accountability, and age should not make you invisible. Remember this clearly. Your children should not have to fear you, but neither should you live in fear of them. A healthy relationship is not built on threats, guilt, silence, or emotional punishment. It is built on mutual respect. If you are afraid to speak honestly because contact may be withdrawn, the relationship already needs attention. You may not be able to control their reaction. You can control whether you continue betraying yourself. Your fear may ask, what if I lose them? Ask another question. If I keep accepting this, what part of myself will I lose? Will you lose your voice, your confidence, your savings, your health, your home, your sleep, your self-respect, your remaining years? The cost of avoiding loneliness can become greater than loneliness itself. Do not pay for company with your dignity. Do not pay for attention with your peace. Do not pay for family connection with constant humiliation. You have the right to be spoken to with basic respect. You have the right to rest. You have the right to privacy. You have the right to make decisions about your own life while you are mentally capable of doing so. You have the right to say no. You have the right to end a harmful conversation. You have the right to seek help. You have the right to build a meaningful life beyond your role as a parent. None of this means you stop loving your children. It means you stop confusing fear with love. Love can remain when fear is removed. In fact, love often becomes healthier when fear is removed. You stop begging. You stop chasing. You stop overgiving. You stop pretending. You begin relating from honesty. You allow your adult children to choose how they respond, and you allow yourself to choose peace without hatred. Sometimes a quiet room is healthier than a house filled with disrespect. Sometimes one peaceful meal alone is better than sitting at a table where you are constantly diminished. Sometimes a smaller circle with sincerity is better than a large family gathering filled with manipulation. Do not worship closeness merely because it looks like family. Ask whether the closeness contains kindness. Ask whether it contains respect. Ask whether you can be yourself without fear. That is what matters. You are not asking for perfection. People become impatient. Families argue. Children make mistakes. Parents make mistakes. Not every harsh word requires distance, but repeated disrespect that is never addressed becomes a pattern, and patterns shape lives. Do not wait until resentment has poisoned your heart. Speak earlier, speak calmly, speak clearly, then act consistently. You may feel guilt, you may feel fear, you may feel sadness. Let those feelings be present without letting them rule you. This is practice. This is where the teaching becomes real, not when everything is peaceful, but when the person you love is angry and you remain grounded enough not to abandon your dignity. You can say, "I love you." You can also say, "This is not acceptable." You can say, "I want you in my life." You can also say, "I will not be treated this way." You can say, "I miss you." You can also refuse to chase someone who uses silence as punishment. You can desire connection without surrendering your inner freedom. That is the balance. As you grow older, your world should not become smaller only because fear says it must. Build meaning, build community, build inner steadiness. Learn to sit with silence. Learn to enjoy your own presence. Learn that your worth does not disappear when the phone is quiet. The goal is not to become independent of all human love. The goal is to stop being controlled by the terror of losing it. Because when you stop clinging desperately, your relationships become clearer. Some may deepen, some may change, some may reveal painful truths, but you will finally be standing in reality. And reality, even when difficult, is where freedom begins. You deserve relationships in which love does not require humiliation. You deserve connection without fear. You deserve family bonds that do not force you to disappear, even in old age, especially in old age. 3. Do not let your money become the measure of your love. Money can become one of the most destructive forces inside a family, especially when parents grow older and adult children begin looking at their savings, property, pension, or home as something that will eventually belong to them. At first, the pressure may appear innocent. A son may ask for temporary help because his business is struggling. A daughter may ask for support because her household expenses have increased. A child may say that the family should sell a property because maintaining it has become difficult. They may say that you no longer need such a large house, such a large amount of savings, or such careful control over your finances. The request may even sound logical. You are not using this money. You should enjoy seeing us benefit from it while you are alive. You cannot take it with you. We are your children. Who else is it for? You have enough for yourself. You do not understand how difficult life has become for us. These statements can deeply affect an aging parent because money is rarely only about money inside a family. It becomes connected to love, loyalty, sacrifice, guilt, responsibility, and fear. A parent may begin thinking, what is the value of my savings if my child is struggling? You may believe that refusing money means you are refusing love. You may fear that your child will see you as greedy, cold, or selfish. You may compare your situation with theirs and think, I have more than I need, while they are suffering. Sometimes this may be true. Sometimes helping is wise. Sometimes generosity is appropriate. But sometimes the situation is not as simple as it appears. You must examine not only the request, but the pattern behind the request. Has this happened before? Was the previous money used responsibly? Was there a clear plan? Was the money returned if it was described as a loan? Has the adult child changed the behavior that created the problem? Or are you being asked to remove the consequences of the same choices again and again? These questions matter because generosity without awareness can create more suffering than it removes. Buddhism does not teach careless giving. It teaches generosity guided by wisdom, compassion, and clear understanding. Generosity is one of the beautiful qualities of the heart, but generosity becomes harmful when it strengthens greed, dependency, dishonesty, or irresponsibility. A gift may look compassionate in the moment, while quietly feeding a destructive pattern that continues for years. Imagine that your adult son has repeatedly borrowed money because he spends beyond his means. Each time, he promises that the situation is temporary. Each time, he says he has learned his lesson. Each time, you use your savings to rescue him. For a few weeks, the crisis disappears. Then another crisis arrives. The amount may become larger. The explanation may become more urgent. The emotional pressure may become stronger. At some point, you must ask whether you are helping him become stronger or helping him remain unchanged. There is a major difference between supporting someone through an unexpected hardship and protecting someone from the repeated consequences of their own behavior. An unexpected illness, job loss, accident, or genuine emergency may call for compassion and support. But repeated gambling, uncontrolled spending, unnecessary luxury, poor planning, or refusal to work cannot always be solved by giving more money. If you continue paying the price of another adult's choices, they may never feel enough discomfort to make different choices. The parent often suffers while the adult child remains unchanged. You reduce your own savings, you become anxious about medical expenses, you lose sleep, you postpone repairs to your home, you stop doing things you enjoy, you begin living more carefully because someone else has not learned to live carefully. Then, strangely, the child may still feel that you have not done enough. This is why you must understand that money cannot become the measure of your love. If your child believes love is proven only through financial access, then every boundary will feel like rejection. If you believe love must always be proven through giving, then every request will become difficult to refuse. Both beliefs create suffering. You must separate love from payment. You can love your child deeply and still refuse a loan. You can care about their pain without financing every solution. You can listen without transferring money. You can offer advice, temporary accommodation, food, transportation, or practical support without surrendering control of your savings. Help does not have only one form, but many adult children will ask for the form that requires the least change from them. Money is immediate. Money removes discomfort. Money delays responsibility. Wisdom asks whether the help will lead toward independence or deeper dependence. The Buddhist path encourages us to examine intention. Before giving, ask yourself honestly why you are giving. Are you giving because the action is wise? Are you giving because the need is genuine? Are you giving because you can afford it without harming yourself? Or are you giving because you are afraid of losing the relationship? Are you afraid your children will stop calling if you refuse? Are you afraid they will describe you as selfish? Are you afraid they will say that you care more about money than family? Are you giving because you feel guilty for mistakes from the past? Are you trying to purchase closeness, forgiveness, or gratitude? These motivations may be hidden beneath the surface. You may call the action generosity, while fear is actually making the decision. This is not a reason to judge yourself harshly. It is a reason to become more aware. Awareness allows you to choose instead of react. Some older parents use money to keep adult children close. They pay bills, give gifts, finance vacations, cover school fees, provide cars, or transfer property because they fear that without financial support, the relationship will weaken. When the child visits, the parent feels needed. When the child asks for help, the parent feels important. When money is given, the child becomes warm and attentive. For a time, the parent feels loved. But this creates a painful question. What happens when the money stops? Does the attention remain? Do the calls continue? Does the affection remain? Does the respect remain? You should not deliberately test your children or become suspicious of every act of kindness. But you must observe patterns honestly. If someone is affectionate only when receiving money and distant when refused, then money may not be supporting the relationship. It may be hiding the truth about the relationship. This is painful to accept. A parent may prefer the illusion of closeness to the truth of conditional affection, but painful truth is still more useful than comforting illusion. You cannot build peace while refusing to see reality. If attention must be purchased, it is not secure attention. If affection disappears when financial access disappears, The bond was already fragile. Your money should never become the entrance fee to your own family. You should not have to pay for phone calls. You should not have to finance every gathering. You should not have to give gifts to be treated warmly. You should not have to promise property in order to receive care. You are a human being, not an inheritance waiting to be divided. Your value does not come from what your children may receive after your death. Your value exists now. Your life exists now. Your needs exist now. Your peace exists now. Many aging parents make dangerous financial decisions because they underestimate their future needs. They think, I am old. How much longer will I need this money? But old age can bring unpredictable expenses. Medical treatment may become necessary. Medication costs may increase. Transportation may become more difficult. Home maintenance may become more expensive. You may need help with cooking, cleaning, bathing, or daily tasks. You may need safer housing. You may live much longer than expected. Giving away money too early can create years of dependence later. This is not pessimism, it is responsible planning. You must not assume that your children will automatically care for you because you gave everything to them. Promises made while money is being transferred can sound sincere. We will always take care of you. You will never need anything. You can live with us. We are family. Perhaps they mean it. But circumstances change, marriages change, jobs change, health changes, relationships change. A child who sincerely intends to care for you today may become unable or unwilling to do so later. This does not mean you should distrust everyone. It means you should not destroy your security based only on emotion and promises. Trust and protection are not enemies. A loving child should understand why an aging parent needs financial independence. A child who becomes angry because you want legal advice, written agreements, or time to think may be revealing something important. Do not make major financial decisions under emotional pressure. Do not transfer property because someone says, "You must trust me." Do not sign documents you do not understand. Do not allow anyone to rush you. Do not make changes to ownership, accounts, wills, or investments simply because a family member says it is easier. You have the right to ask questions. You have the right to receive independent advice. You have the right to speak privately with a lawyer, accountant, or financial professional. You have the right to say, "I will not decide today." Urgency is often used to weaken judgment. You may hear, "The deal will disappear." "The payment is due tomorrow. We need the money now. This is our only chance." Why are you making everything difficult? But why must decades of savings be moved within hours? Why must your future security be risked because another adult failed to plan? Sometimes urgency is genuine. Sometimes it is a method of pressure. Either way, your responsibility is to slow down. When the mind becomes frightened, judgment becomes weaker. A wise decision can survive careful examination. A manipulative request often cannot. You should also be careful with the idea of early inheritance. Some adult children may begin speaking about your property as though ownership has already transferred. They may say, "This house will be ours anyway." They may argue over what they will receive. They may pressure you to divide assets while you are still alive. They may become impatient with the way you use your own money. This is deeply disrespectful. An inheritance is not a debt owed to your children while you are alive. Your savings are not waiting for permission to be spent by others. Your home is not useless because you are old. Your comfort is not wasteful. Your independence is not selfish. If you choose to give, let it be a conscious choice. Do not let expectation turn your generosity into obligation. The middle path is important here. Buddhism does not encourage greed or attachment to wealth. Money is impermanent. Property is impermanent. Possessions cannot be carried beyond death. But understanding impermanence does not mean you must give everything away recklessly. Non-attachment is not carelessness. It means you use resources wisely without allowing greed, fear, or identity to control you. You can enjoy what you have without clinging. You can share without destroying yourself. You can plan responsibly without worshipping money. You can protect your needs without becoming miserly. The middle path avoids two extremes. One extreme is hoarding everything out of fear. The other extreme is giving everything away out of guilt or pressure. Wisdom stands between them. Ask, what amount can I give without creating suffering for myself later? Ask, will this help create independence or dependence? Ask, is this a genuine need or a repeated pattern? Ask, would I make the same decision if I were not afraid of their anger? These questions bring clarity. You may decide to help, but with conditions. You may pay a bill directly rather than handing over cash. You may offer a smaller amount. You may give once, but explain that the support will not continue. You may ask for a budget or repayment plan. You may say, I can help with food, but not with luxury spending. You may say, I cannot give money, but I can help you look for another solution. These responses are not cruel. They are thoughtful. Sometimes adult children become angry because conditions remove the freedom to use money however they wish. Their anger may tempt you to surrender, but anger does not prove that your decision is wrong. A reasonable person can feel disappointed while still respecting your right to decide. A manipulative person may treat your boundary as betrayal. You must learn to tolerate that discomfort. You may hear, you care more about money than your own family. Do not immediately defend yourself for an hour. You can say, I care about you, and I also have a responsibility to protect my future needs. You may hear, you are going to die with all that money. You can say, perhaps, but while I am alive, I need to make careful decisions. You may hear, we will take care of you. You can say, I appreciate that, but I still need financial independence. You do not need to become angry. You do not need to accuse. You do not need to explain every detail of your finances. Your adult children do not automatically have the right to know every balance, investment, or account. Privacy is not dishonesty. Some parents reveal too much and then become surprised when expectations grow. You may discuss finances only with people who genuinely need to know and who have shown responsibility. Do not turn every family conversation into a report on what you own. The more people know, the more opinions they may develop about how your money should be used. Protecting information can be part of protecting yourself. You should also avoid putting yourself at risk by guaranteeing loans. An adult child may say, I only need your signature. They may promise that you will never have to pay. But if the debt is not paid, your savings, property, or credit may be affected. Love does not remove financial consequences. Do not sign because you feel embarrassed to refuse. Do not risk your home for someone else's business idea unless you fully understand and willingly accept the possibility of losing it. A promise of success is not security. Many failed plans began with confidence. You must make decisions based on what could happen, not only on what everyone hopes will happen. There is another danger when parents give different amounts to different children. One child may genuinely need more help. Another may feel ignored. Comparisons begin. Resentment grows. You may be pressured to make every gift equal, even when situations are different. There is no perfect solution, but secrecy, confusion, and inconsistent promises often make things worse. Be clear where possible. Do not promise the same money to more than one person. Do not use financial gifts to reward the child who gives you the most attention. Do not punish one child by giving more to another. Money should not become a weapon in either direction. Parents can manipulate children with money, just as children can manipulate parents. You must examine your own behavior honestly. Do you threaten to change your will whenever someone disagrees with you? Do you give gifts and then expect obedience? Do you say, after all I have done for you, whenever your child sets a boundary? Do you use financial support to control marriages, careers, or parenting decisions? If so, This also creates suffering. Generosity with hidden conditions is not pure generosity. A gift should not become a chain. This lesson is not only about protecting yourself from adult children, it is about creating a healthier relationship with money on both sides. Give freely when you truly choose to give. Set conditions clearly when conditions are necessary. Do not pretend a gift is a loan if you know you will never ask for repayment. Do not call something a gift and then use it as emotional leverage for years. Clarity prevents resentment. If you cannot afford to lose the money, do not lend it casually. If you give to family, understand that repayment may never come. Make the decision with open eyes. Do not give money while secretly expecting gratitude that may never arrive. Do not sacrifice your security while expecting future care in exchange. Unspoken agreements create disappointment. A parent may think, "I gave them everything, so they will care for me." The child may think, "My parent chose to give because that is what parents do." Years later, both feel betrayed. This is why honest communication matters. But even with communication, keep enough to protect your own needs. You are responsible for your remaining life. You are not selfish for preparing for it. You are not unloving for saying no. You are not greedy for wanting a secure home, reliable medical care, and independence. The question is not whether you love your children. The question is whether the financial decision is wise. Do not allow someone to change the question. When they say, "If you loved me, you would give," return to clarity. Love is not the issue. Wisdom is the issue. Sustainability is the issue. Responsibility is the issue. You can say, "My love for you is not being decided here. I am deciding whether this financial request is healthy and possible." This separates the relationship from the transaction. Your child may not like that, but healthy love must survive a financial boundary. If the relationship collapses because you refused money, then the money was carrying more of the relationship than you wanted to admit. That truth may hurt, but it protects you from living inside illusion. You worked for your savings, you endured stress, you made sacrifices, you delayed pleasure, you planned for the future. Do not let one emotional conversation undo decades of effort. Use what you have wisely. Enjoy some of it. Support causes you value. Help family where help is genuine and sustainable. Take care of your health. Make your home safe. Create experiences that bring peace. You are allowed to use your own resources for your own life. Some parents feel guilty spending money on themselves. They will give thousands to an adult child, but hesitate to spend a small amount on their own comfort. They think the children's needs are always more important. But an adult child's desire is not automatically more important than an aging parent's well-being. You have spent decades caring for others. You are still allowed to care for yourself. This is not selfishness. It is balance. A parent who gives everything and later becomes completely dependent may create more pressure for the entire family. Protecting your independence can actually reduce future suffering for everyone. So do not let guilt confuse the issue. Do not let fear make the decision. Do not let affection be purchased. Do not let urgency rush you. Do not let promises replace protection. Do not let your children treat your life's work as money already owed to them. Your children may inherit what remains after your life. But while you are alive, your money has a purpose. It supports your body. It protects your dignity. It gives you choices. It helps you meet uncertainty. It allows you to live without begging others for every need. Financial independence in old age is not only about comfort, it is often about freedom. When you have enough to support yourself, you are less vulnerable to control. You can make decisions without fear that someone will withdraw basic care. You can leave a harmful living arrangement. You can seek medical treatment. You can choose who helps you. This freedom matters. Do not surrender it lightly. Love your children. Be generous where generosity is wise. Respond to genuine hardship with compassion. But remember that compassion includes you. Your suffering also matters. Your future also matters. Your peace also matters. The middle path does not ask you to become hard, it asks you to become clear. Give without fear, refuse without hatred, protect without greed, plan without obsession, and never allow money to become the proof of whether you are a loving parent. Love is revealed through presence, honesty, patience, respect, guidance, forgiveness, and compassion. It is not measured by how much financial damage you are willing to accept. You are not an ATM. You are not an account waiting to be emptied. You are not valuable because of what others may receive from you. You are valuable because you are alive, conscious, and worthy of dignity. Let your money serve life. Do not let it become the chain through which fear controls you. 4. Do not let their problems become your entire life. One of the deepest habits parents carry into old age is the habit of worrying. When your children were young, worry seemed necessary because they truly depended on you. You had to notice danger before they noticed it. You had to think about food, health, education, safety, behavior, friendships, and the future. If they became sick, you stayed awake. If they were late coming home, your mind imagined what might have happened. If they struggled at school, you tried to help. If they were hurt, you felt the pain as though it had happened inside your own body. For many years, watching, protecting, planning, and solving were part of your daily role. The problem is that the body of the child grows into adulthood, but the habits of the parent do not always grow with it. Your son may be 45 years old, but when he says he is in trouble, part of you immediately becomes the frightened parent of a 10-year-old boy. Your daughter may be raising children of her own, but when she tells you about a problem in her marriage, your mind begins working as if it is your responsibility to repair everything. You do not simply hear their pain, you absorb it, you carry it into your bedroom, you replay it while eating, you think about it during the night. You wake up with it in the morning. You ask yourself what you should say, what you should do, who you should call, how much money you should give, and how you can prevent the situation from becoming worse. Their problem begins as one event in their life, but soon it becomes the center of yours. This is how many parents lose their remaining years. Not because they do not love enough, but because they never learned the difference between caring and carrying. Caring means you remain emotionally present, compassionate, and willing to help within wise limits. Carrying means you take another adult's entire burden into your own mind and behave as though their peace depends completely on you. Caring can be healthy. Carrying everything is not. Your adult child may have financial problems, relationship problems, work problems, health concerns, parenting struggles, legal disputes, or emotional pain. These situations may be serious. Some may require support. Some may require professional help. Some may require urgent action. But even when the problem is serious, it is still important to ask a difficult question. Whose life is this? The answer is simple, but many parents resist it. It is their life. Their marriage is their marriage. Their career is their career. Their debt is their debt. Their choices are their choices. Their consequences are their consequences. You may be connected to them through love, history, and family, but connection does not erase separation. They are not an extension of your body. They are not a continuation of your personal identity. They are separate human beings with their own path, their own mind, their own habits, and their own responsibility. Buddhist teachings repeatedly ask us to look clearly at attachment. Attachment is not only wanting someone to stay close. Attachment can also appear as the belief that another person's life must unfold according to your wishes. You want your child to be safe. You want their marriage to succeed. You want their finances to improve. You want their children to behave well. You want them to avoid pain. These desires are understandable, but when the mind turns these wishes into demands, suffering begins. You begin thinking, they must make the right decision. They must listen to me. They must leave that relationship. They must keep that relationship. They must stop spending. They must change careers. They must raise their children differently. They must understand before it is too late. Your mind believes that if you worry hard enough, advise strongly enough, sacrifice deeply enough, or interfere quickly enough, you can control the outcome. But control is often an illusion. You may influence, you may advise, you may support, you may warn, but you cannot guarantee. This is one of the hardest truths of parenthood. You can spend 20 years teaching a child one way, and they may choose another. You can explain consequences, and they may ignore you. You can give wise advice, and they may reject it. You can sacrifice greatly, and they may still repeat the same mistake. You can love someone sincerely, and still be unable to save them from themselves. This truth can feel cruel, but refusing to accept it creates even more suffering. A parent who believes, "I must prevent all suffering," will eventually become exhausted, controlling, or resentful because no human being has the power to prevent every painful consequence in another person's life. The desire to rescue may look like love, but sometimes it is also an attempt to escape your own discomfort. When your child suffers, you feel helpless. Helplessness is painful. You want to act because action gives temporary relief. You make the phone call. You send the money. You contact the spouse. You speak to the employer. You intervene in the argument. You take control of the plan. For a moment, you feel useful. You feel less helpless. But useful action and anxious action are not always the same. Sometimes your intervention solves part of the problem. Sometimes it makes the situation worse. Sometimes it teaches your adult child that every crisis can be handed back to the parent. Sometimes it prevents them from developing judgment, courage, patience, or responsibility. Suppose your adult daughter calls after an argument with her husband. She is upset. She tells you only her side of the story. You immediately become angry on her behalf. You call relatives. You criticize her husband. You tell her to leave. A few days later, the couple reconciles, but the words you spoke remain. The tension you created remains. Your relationship with the spouse changes. Your daughter moves forward, but you continue carrying resentment from a conflict that was never fully yours. This happens in many families. The parent becomes emotionally involved in every marital disagreement, and then cannot understand why family relationships become complicated. Listening is not the same as taking control. Sometimes the most helpful response is not advice. It is calm presence. You can say, "I am sorry you are hurting. I will listen." Before making a major decision, give yourself time and seek appropriate support. You do not need to declare a villain immediately. You do not need to turn one painful conversation into a permanent family war. You should take abuse, violence, or genuine danger seriously. But not every marital disagreement is abuse, and not every emotional account heard in the middle of anger represents the complete truth. Wisdom waits for clarity. Fear rushes to intervene. The same pattern appears with money. Your adult child loses a job. You panic. Before they have even made a plan, you offer to pay every bill. You take responsibility for rent, food, school fees, and debt. Perhaps temporary help is appropriate. But if you carry everything immediately, the child may not even begin asking the questions adulthood requires. What expenses can be reduced? What work is available? What support can they seek? What habits must change? What responsibility can they take? You may believe you are removing suffering, but you may only be moving it from their shoulders onto yours. The problem remains. Only the person carrying it has changed. This is why Buddhism emphasizes wise compassion rather than blind emotional reaction. Compassion is not doing everything another person asks. Compassion is responding in a way that genuinely reduces suffering and does not create greater suffering later. Sometimes compassion gives food, sometimes compassion gives money, sometimes compassion gives shelter, sometimes compassion gives advice. Sometimes compassion says, "I cannot solve this for you, but I believe you can take the next step." A wise parent must ask not only, How do I make this pain disappear today? The better question is, what response supports growth, responsibility, and long-term stability? That question may lead to a less comfortable answer. Your child may want you to call someone on their behalf. You may decide they need to make the call themselves. They may want you to pay the debt. You may decide to help them create a repayment plan instead. They may want you to choose between two paths. You may tell them that the decision belongs to them. They may want you to take their side in every conflict. You may say, "I love you, but I need to remain fair." This can feel like withdrawal to a child who is used to being rescued. But support is not the same as control. When you refuse to take over, you may be communicating something powerful. I believe you are capable. I believe you can tolerate discomfort. I believe you can make decisions. I believe you can learn. I will not treat you like a helpless child simply because you are suffering. This is respect. Many parents say they want their adult children to become independent, yet their behavior constantly communicates the opposite. They complain that the child depends on them, but they immediately solve every problem. They say, "You must learn responsibility," but then remove every consequence. They say, "You need to stand on your own feet," but become offended when the child stops asking for advice. This contradiction must be examined honestly. Sometimes parents are attached to being needed. Being needed gives them a sense of purpose. When the phone rings with a crisis, they feel important. When the child asks for help, they feel relevant. When they solve the problem, they feel valuable. Then they complain about the burden while secretly fearing the day the burden disappears. This does not mean the parent is dishonest or cruel. It means the identity of rescuer has become emotionally important. You must ask yourself a difficult question. Do I truly want my child to become independent, or do I want them to remain dependent in a way that keeps me necessary? If the child makes a decision without consulting you, do you feel proud or rejected? If they solve a problem alone, do you feel relieved or unimportant? If they set a boundary, do you respect it or accuse them of forgetting you? These reactions reveal attachment. The Buddhist path invites you to examine identity. For many years, your identity may have been built around being the provider, the protector, or the person everyone called in a crisis. Now age is changing those roles. Your children may no longer need the same kind of help. This can create an emptiness. Rather than face that emptiness, you may continue entering problems that no longer belong to you. You may offer advice before it is requested. You may ask intrusive questions. You may monitor their choices. You may take responsibility for conflicts that they should handle themselves. You may say, "I am only worried," but worry becomes the doorway through which control enters. Concern does not automatically give you authority. Love does not automatically give you the right to manage another adult. Your child may make a decision you dislike. You can express concern respectfully. But after that, you may need to let go. Letting go does not mean approving. It does not mean pretending the decision is wise. It means recognizing the boundary of your control. You can say, "I have shared what I believe. The decision is yours, and I hope you will consider the consequences carefully." Then stop repeating yourself. Many parents believe repetition will create understanding. Often it only creates distance. The child heard you the first time. They may disagree. They may ignore you. They may understand later. But repeating the same warning every day does not guarantee wisdom. It may only make them avoid you. You must learn when guidance has been offered and when attachment is refusing to release the outcome. There is also the problem of emotional transfer. Your child tells you they are anxious. Soon, you become more anxious than they are. They tell you they have a medical test. You begin imagining the worst diagnosis. They tell you work is unstable. You spend the night imagining homelessness. They mention a problem with one of their children. You begin fearing the child's entire future. The mind expands one uncertain event into a complete disaster. This is not compassion. It is mental suffering created by uncontrolled imagination. The mind believes worrying is useful because it feels active. You may think, if I stop worrying, it means I do not care. This belief is false. Worry and care are not the same. Care can lead to clear action. Worry usually repeats the same fear without producing a solution. Care asks, what can be done? Worry asks, what if everything goes wrong? Care listens. Worry interrupts. Care remains present. Worry travels into imagined futures. Care respects boundaries. Worry tries to control. You can love someone deeply without spending every night rehearsing their disaster. Your sleeplessness does not protect them. Your raised blood pressure does not improve their marriage. Your anxiety does not create employment. Your constant mental suffering does not pay their debt. It only creates a second problem. The first problem belongs to your child. The second problem is the suffering your own mind builds around it. This is where Buddhist mindfulness becomes practical. When worry begins, pause and ask, is there a useful action available to me right now? Be honest. Perhaps there is. You may need to call a doctor. You may need to offer temporary support. You may need to help gather information. You may need to encourage professional help. You may need to contact emergency services if there is immediate danger. Take useful action where useful action exists. But once the appropriate action is complete, stop pretending that worry is another action. It is not. If there is nothing useful to do at this moment, return to the present. Notice your breathing. Notice the weight of your body. Notice the floor beneath your feet. Notice the sounds around you. Say inwardly, the problem exists, but I am here now. The mind will try to pull you back. It will say, but what if? What if they lose the house? What if the marriage ends? What if the treatment fails? What if they blame me? You do not have to answer every fearful question. Many questions cannot be answered tonight. You can say, I do not know. The mind hates uncertainty. It prefers a terrible imagined answer to no answer at all. But uncertainty is part of life. You cannot remove it through worry. You can only learn to sit with it. This is a deep practice. It is easy to speak about peace when everyone is safe. The real practice begins when someone you love is struggling and you cannot control the outcome. Can you remain compassionate without collapsing? Can you remain available without taking over? Can you accept uncertainty without filling it with disaster? Can you let another adult face a consequence without immediately removing it? This is not emotional coldness. It is disciplined love. There will be situations in which you must step back, even when you know pain may follow. Perhaps your son repeatedly returns to a harmful habit. You have advised him. You have helped him financially. You have arranged treatment. You have forgiven broken promises. At some point, continuing the same rescue may only continue the same cycle. You may need to say, I love you, and I am willing to support recovery, but I will not give money that supports this behavior. This is painful. He may accuse you of abandonment, but refusing to participate in destruction is not abandonment. Perhaps your daughter repeatedly returns to an unhealthy relationship, asks for help, rejects every plan, and then expects you to carry the emotional crisis each time. You can care for her. You can keep the door open for safety. You can encourage professional support, but you cannot spend every day living inside a cycle she is not yet willing to change. You may need to say, I will listen, but I cannot repeat the same conversation every night without any action being taken. This is not lack of love. It is recognition of your own limits. Limits are real. Your body has limits. Your finances have limits. Your emotional energy has limits. Your time has limits. Old age makes these limits even more important. You may no longer recover from stress as quickly. A sleepless night may affect you for several days. Constant anxiety may worsen existing health problems. Repeated family crises may leave you physically exhausted. You cannot pretend your body is endlessly available simply because you are a parent. Compassion includes awareness of capacity. You cannot pour from an empty vessel, but more importantly, You should not keep breaking the vessel to prove that you care. You need rest. You need routine. You need emotional space. You need days that are not consumed by someone else's emergency. Some parents feel guilty when they enjoy life while a child is struggling. They think, how can I relax when my son has problems? How can I travel when my daughter is unhappy? How can I laugh while my child is suffering? This guilt may seem noble, but your suffering does not improve their situation. You are not required to become miserable in order to prove solidarity. You can care and still eat peacefully. You can help and still sleep. You can feel concern and still enjoy a walk. You can support someone without placing your entire life on hold. Your happiness is not a betrayal. In fact, remaining stable may allow you to offer better support. A calm mind sees options. An exhausted mind reacts. A peaceful parent can listen more clearly. A panicked parent may create more confusion. You do not help your children by becoming emotionally destroyed beside them. You help by becoming grounded enough to respond wisely. This is especially important when adult children involve you in conflicts with siblings. One child may call and complain about another. They may want you to take sides. They may ask you to deliver messages. They may expect you to solve an argument between two adults. You become the messenger, judge, and emotional container. Then both sides become angry with you. Do not allow every sibling conflict to become your responsibility. You can say, you need to speak directly with each other. You can refuse to carry messages. You can refuse to gossip. You can say, I love both of you, and I will not participate in insulting either of you. This protects your peace and forces adults to communicate as adults. You are not required to remain the manager of the family forever. Sometimes parents continue managing because they fear the family will fall apart without them. Perhaps it will become messy. Perhaps people will make mistakes. But a family cannot mature if one aging parent remains responsible for regulating everyone's emotions. You may need to step out of the center. Let them make calls. Let them apologize. Let them repair. Let them experience the discomfort of unresolved conflict. You can remain loving without becoming the permanent mediator. Another common burden is worrying about grandchildren. Your adult child may raise their children differently from the way you would. You may dislike the discipline, education, diet, technology use, or household routines. Some concerns may be valid. If a child is in genuine danger, appropriate action matters, but many differences are not danger, they are differences. You must distinguish between harmful neglect and a parenting style you simply do not prefer. Constant criticism may damage your relationship with your adult child and reduce your influence. You may believe you are protecting the grandchildren, while your repeated interference creates distance. Offer guidance carefully. Ask whether advice is welcome. Speak clearly when something serious is at stake. But do not turn every difference into a crisis. Your adult children must carry the responsibility of parenting their children. You cannot raise two generations at once. You raised yours. Now they must make decisions, learn, fail, adjust, and mature. You can be a source of wisdom without becoming a second ruler in their home. This requires humility. You may have experience, but experience does not mean you are right in every situation. Times change. Knowledge changes. Every household has conditions you may not fully understand. Listen before advising. Ask before interfering. Respect their role. The goal is not to disappear. It is to participate appropriately. Appropriate involvement brings closeness. Constant control creates resistance. The deeper lesson is that love must contain trust. Not blind trust that ignores danger, but trust in the other person's capacity to live, learn, and face consequences. When you solve everything, you communicate fear. When you allow responsibility, you communicate trust. You are saying, I believe life can teach you. I believe you can survive discomfort. I believe you can recover from mistakes. I believe you are more capable than my anxiety tells me. This trust may be difficult because you know your child's weaknesses, you have seen their poor decisions, you know the patterns. But you must also admit that you cannot create maturity for them. Maturity grows through experience. Sometimes it grows through failure, sometimes through loss, sometimes through consequences, sometimes through the painful realization that nobody else will keep fixing everything. You cannot remove every stone from their path. Sometimes the stone is the teacher. A person who never carries weight does not become strong. A person who never makes a decision does not develop judgment. A person who is never allowed to fail may remain afraid of life. Your role is not to guarantee that your adult child never falls. Your role may be to remain nearby without lying, controlling, or rescuing them from every fall. You can help them stand when the help is wise, but they must eventually use their own legs. You may worry that stepping back is selfish. Ask yourself whether you are truly stepping back from love or only stepping back from unhealthy responsibility. There is a difference. You can still call, you can still listen, you can still offer a meal, you can still provide temporary help. You can still say, I am here, but being here does not mean being in charge. It does not mean you must give an answer. It does not mean you must accept every burden. It does not mean you must become available at all hours for problems that are not urgent. You are allowed to say, I am tired. We can speak tomorrow. You are allowed to say, I do not know the answer. You are allowed to say, you need professional advice. You are allowed to say, I cannot take responsibility for this. You are allowed to say, I trust you to make the decision. These sentences may feel unfamiliar. For decades, you may have believed a good parent always knows what to do. But old age can bring a more honest kind of wisdom. You do not have to know everything. You do not have to fix everything. You do not have to carry everyone. Aging can become the season in which you finally put down burdens that were never yours to hold permanently. This does not mean your heart will stop worrying overnight. Habits built over decades do not disappear because you understand one lesson. The phone will ring, and anxiety may still rise. Your child will describe a problem, and your mind may still rush towards solutions. The practice is to create a pause. Before promising money, pause. Before calling someone, pause. Before taking sides, pause. Before imagining disaster, pause. Ask yourself, what belongs to me here? Perhaps listening belongs to you. Perhaps giving one piece of advice belongs to you. Perhaps offering limited support belongs to you. Perhaps doing nothing immediately belongs to you. Then ask, what belongs to them? The decision may belong to them. The apology may belong to them. The repayment may belong to them. The difficult conversation may belong to them. The consequence may belong to them. The lesson may belong to them. This separation is not rejection, it is clarity. Without clarity, love becomes tangled with fear. You begin carrying what belongs to others and neglecting what belongs to you. What belongs to you? Your health, your mind, your conduct, your finances, your home, your spiritual practice, your remaining time. Your response, your boundaries. These are your responsibilities. You may not be able to control your child's choices, but you can choose whether those choices consume every hour of your life. You may not be able to stop their crisis, but you can stop feeding your mind with imagined outcomes all night. You may not be able to force them to change, but you can change the way you participate in the pattern. This is where freedom begins. Many parents wait for their children's lives to become peaceful before allowing themselves to be peaceful. They say, I will relax when my son finds a stable job. I will be happy when my daughter's marriage improves. I will sleep when the debt is paid. I will enjoy life when the grandchildren are settled. But one problem ends and another begins. That is life. If your peace depends on every person you love having no problems, you will never be peaceful. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be change. There will always be something unfinished. Buddhist practice does not promise a life without difficulty. It teaches a mind that can meet difficulty without being completely consumed by it. You can say, "This is painful, but I will not become the pain." You can say, "My child is struggling, but I am still breathing in this moment." You can say, "I care, but I cannot control." You can say, "I will help where wisdom allows, and I will release what is beyond me." This is not indifference. Indifference closes the heart. Wisdom keeps the heart open while releasing the illusion of control. You still feel, you still care, you may still cry, but you stop turning love into constant mental punishment. You stop believing that your anxiety is protecting anyone. You stop measuring your devotion by how exhausted you are. You stop living from crisis to crisis. Your life is still your life. This may sound obvious, but many aging parents forget it. They wake up thinking about the children. They spend the day discussing the children. They go to sleep worrying about the children. Months pass. Years pass. Their own interests disappear. Their friendships weaken. Their health is neglected. Their inner life becomes empty except for family problems. Then resentment grows. They begin thinking, "I gave my whole life to them," but sometimes nobody asked them to give their whole inner life. Sometimes they gave it because they did not know how to step back. You must not make your children responsible for the life you refuse to build beyond them. This is a hard truth. Parenthood is important, but it is not the only possible meaning of your existence. You are still a human being beyond the role. You can read, you can walk, you can meditate, you can sit in nature, you can reconnect with friends, you can serve your community, you can learn, you can rest, you can enjoy silence, you can care for your body, you can explore the inner life that may have been ignored during years of responsibility. Do not turn old age into a control room where you monitor every problem in your children's lives. The world will continue even when you stop managing it. Your children will make choices. Some will be wise, some will be foolish, some will surprise you, some may disappoint you. That is their path. You can remain a source of love without becoming the owner of their outcomes. The practice is to walk beside them, not ahead of them, dragging them toward your preferred future, and not behind them, carrying every burden they drop. Walk beside them, close enough to care, far enough to see clearly, available enough to support, detached enough to respect their responsibility. This balance will not always be perfect. You will sometimes interfere too much. You may sometimes step back too far. Notice, adjust. Do not punish yourself. The middle path is practiced, not achieved once and never revisited. When your adult child comes with a problem, listen first. Ask what they need. Do they want advice? Do they want practical help? Do they only want to be heard? Do not assume. Then decide what you can offer without harming yourself or strengthening irresponsibility. Be clear. Do not promise what you cannot sustain. Do not make decisions from panic. Do not let their urgency automatically become your emergency. Most importantly, do not make their life the place where your own life disappears. You have spent years caring. Now care with wisdom. You have spent years protecting. Now protect without controlling. You have spent years carrying. Now learn what can be put down. Your adult children need love, but they also need the dignity of responsibility. They need to know that their choices matter. They need to develop strength. They need to discover that problems can be faced without always returning to the parent who will remove every consequence. And you need the dignity of having a life that is not permanently organized around their instability. You are allowed to have a peaceful morning even when they are confused. You are allowed to sleep even when they have a decision to make. You are allowed to laugh even when they are unhappy. You are allowed to say, "This problem is yours to solve." You are allowed to trust life. Their journey belongs to them. Your journey belongs to you. Love them deeply. Support them wisely. Speak honestly. Remain available where appropriate. But do not spend the final chapter of your life carrying problems that another adult must learn to carry for themselves. 5. Do not let access to your grandchildren become a weapon against you. For many aging parents, one of the most painful weaknesses is not money, guilt, or loneliness. It is the fear of losing access to their grandchildren. The love a grandparent feels can be deep, tender, and difficult to explain. You may have spent years imagining this stage of life. You may have pictured yourself holding a grandchild, telling stories, sharing family traditions, helping with school, offering wisdom, and watching another generation grow. Grandchildren can bring joy into a home that has become quieter. Their voices can make you feel alive. Their visits can give structure to your week. Their questions can remind you that you still have something meaningful to give. Their affection may feel simple and pure in a way that adult relationships often do not. Because this bond matters so much, the possibility of losing it can become terrifying. You may begin thinking, if I upset my son, he may stop bringing the children. You may fear that your daughter will stop answering your calls. You may worry that one disagreement will become the reason you are excluded from birthdays, holidays, and family gatherings. You may imagine your grandchildren growing up without knowing you. You may fear that they will be told a story in which you are described as selfish, difficult, controlling, or uncaring. This fear can become so powerful that you tolerate things you would never otherwise accept. You may give money you cannot afford to lose because you are afraid that refusing will reduce contact. You may provide free childcare even when your body is exhausted. You may allow your adult children to arrive without notice because you fear they will stop visiting if you ask for basic respect. You may endure insults, criticism, demands, and emotional pressure because you do not want conflict to affect your relationship with the grandchildren. You may remain silent while your decisions are ignored. You may apologize even when you did nothing wrong. You may accept being used because the alternative feels like losing the children you love. This is how affection becomes vulnerability. Your love for your grandchildren is not the problem. The problem begins when fear turns that love into a chain. A person who knows what you are most afraid of losing can sometimes use that fear to control your behavior. Not every adult child does this consciously. Some may never openly threaten you. They may not say, "Do this or you will not see the children." The pressure may be more subtle. Visits become less frequent when you refuse a request. Messages become colder. Plans are cancelled. You are excluded from gatherings. You are told that you are creating stress for the family. You sense that access is connected to obedience, but nobody says it directly. This uncertainty can be even more painful because you begin questioning yourself. Am I imagining this? Should I simply keep quiet? Perhaps I should give in for the sake of peace. Maybe seeing the grandchildren is more important than my dignity. This is where you must become very honest. Peace created through fear is not real peace. It is temporary silence. A relationship in which you must constantly submit to avoid punishment is not emotionally secure. You may remain close physically while becoming increasingly resentful inside. You smile during visits, but your body is tense. You agree outwardly, but anger grows inwardly. You tell yourself that you are protecting the grandchildren, but slowly your own peace is being destroyed. This cannot continue forever without consequences. Resentment eventually appears in your voice. It may appear as criticism. It may appear as passive-aggressive comments. It may appear as coldness toward your adult child. It may appear as emotional pressure placed on the grandchildren themselves. Then the very relationship you were trying to preserve becomes damaged by years of unspoken pain. This is why wisdom matters. You must not respond to this fear only with anger. You must not immediately assume that every boundary set by your adult children is manipulation. Parents have rights, but adult children also have rights. Grandparents have love to give, but parents are responsible for decisions concerning their children. This can be difficult to accept, especially when you strongly disagree with those decisions. You may believe that because you raise children successfully, Your experience should give you authority in the next generation. You may think, I know more than they do. Perhaps in certain areas you do. Experience can be valuable. But experience does not mean ownership. Your grandchildren are not your children. You may love them deeply, but their parents carry the primary responsibility for how they are raised. This means you must examine your own behavior before concluding that access is being used as a weapon. Ask yourself whether you respect the parents' role. Do you follow their reasonable rules? Do you criticize their parenting in front of the grandchildren? Do you undermine their decisions? Do you give the children things their parents have clearly refused? Do you tell the grandchildren, your mother is too strict, or your father does not understand you? Do you speak negatively about the parents when the children are listening? Do you use money, gifts, or affection to become the favorite adult? Do you expect to be included in every family decision? Do you arrive without notice and then become offended when the timing is inconvenient? Do you demand access rather than building trust? These questions may feel uncomfortable, but Buddhist practice is not about proving yourself innocent. It is about seeing clearly. If your own attachment is causing you to cross boundaries, then correction must begin with you. Grandparents can also become controlling. They can use sacrifice, age, illness, or tradition to pressure their adult children. They can say, after everything I did for you, this is how you treat me. They can use gifts as leverage. They can threaten to change their will. They can criticize spouses. They can compete with the other grandparents. They can create tension while claiming that all they want is love. This must be acknowledged honestly. If your adult child is setting a reasonable boundary because you repeatedly ignore their role, then respecting that boundary is not submission, it is maturity. You may need to apologize. You may need to change how you speak. You may need to stop giving advice unless it is requested. You may need to accept that the household follows rules different from yours. You may need to recognize that being the grandparent does not give you unlimited access. This humility can protect the relationship. But there is another reality. Sometimes grandparents behave respectfully and are still manipulated. Sometimes adult children use access to grandchildren to obtain money, property, childcare, obedience, or emotional submission. Sometimes they know the grandparent is afraid of being excluded, and they use that fear repeatedly. This can be deeply cruel. You must distinguish between a reasonable parental boundary and emotional punishment. A reasonable boundary is usually connected to the child's safety, routine, emotional well-being, or family stability. It can be explained calmly. It applies consistently. It does not change every time money or obedience is involved. Emotional punishment is different. Access becomes conditional on giving. Contact changes when you say no. The children are used as messengers. You are told they do not want to see you when they may be too young to understand the conflict. Visits are removed after unrelated disagreements. You are threatened with exclusion whenever you set a boundary. Your relationship with the grandchildren becomes a reward for compliance. This pattern should not be ignored. At the same time, reacting with rage will usually make the situation worse. If you accuse, threaten, insult, or attack the parents, they may become even more defensive. You may feel justified, but the result may be greater distance. Wisdom asks you to respond with clarity, not panic. You can say, I love the children, and I want a respectful relationship with the whole family. I do not want contact with them to become part of financial or personal disagreements. You can say, I understand that you are their parent, and I will respect reasonable boundaries. I also hope the children are not used as a way to pressure me. You can say, I am willing to discuss concerns calmly, but I will not make decisions under threats. These statements are firm without becoming hostile. You may not receive a reasonable response. That is painful. But your goal is not to control the other person's reaction. Your goal is to act with integrity. This is one of the central lessons of non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean you stop loving your grandchildren. It does not mean you become cold or indifferent. It does not mean you say, "I do not care whether I see them." That would often be false. You do care. You may care deeply. Non-attachment means you recognize the boundary between love and control. You love them. You wish to be part of their lives. You value the relationship, but you cannot destroy yourself trying to guarantee an outcome that ultimately depends on other people. This is extremely difficult because the mind says, if I do not surrender now, I may lose years with them. The fear may feel unbearable. You may be tempted to give money immediately. You may agree to unreasonable demands. You may accept disrespect just to keep the next visit. But every time you submit through fear, the pattern becomes stronger. The other person learns that the threat works. You learn that your boundary is unsafe. The next demand becomes easier to make. Soon, your entire relationship may be organized around fear of exclusion. This is not love. It is emotional captivity. You must ask yourself a difficult question. How much of yourself are you willing to surrender to avoid possible distance? Will you surrender your savings, your home, your health, your privacy, your peace, your right to make decisions? Will you allow someone to speak to you cruelly because you fear missing a birthday? Will you permit repeated exploitation because you fear that the grandchildren will forget you? These are not small questions. There is no painless answer. But a relationship that requires you to disappear is already harming you. You may believe that tolerating everything is necessary for the grandchildren, but children observe more than adults realize. They notice tension. They notice disrespect. They notice when one adult is afraid of another. They notice when affection is mixed with control. Even if nobody explains the situation, the emotional pattern enters the room. Do you want your grandchildren to learn that love requires submission? Do you want them to believe that family members may threaten, exploit, or humiliate one another without consequence? Or do you want them to see an older person who remains kind, respectful, and self-controlled while also preserving dignity? You may not always have the opportunity to teach them directly, but your conduct still matters. A calm boundary can become a lesson. A refusal to participate in manipulation can become a lesson. Remaining loving without becoming desperate can become a lesson. This does not guarantee immediate closeness. Sometimes truth creates temporary distance, but false peace teaches the wrong lesson. You also need to understand that your grandchildren should not become the emotional center of every conflict between you and their parents. Do not question them about family disputes. Do not ask them to carry messages. Do not say, "Tell your mother I am hurt." Do not ask them who said what. Do not make them choose sides. Do not tell them, "Your father does not let me see you." Even when you feel wronged, children should not be forced to carry adult conflict. This creates confusion and guilt in them. They may love you and their parents. They should not feel that loving one side betrays the other. Protect them from that burden. You may be desperate to defend yourself. You may want them to know the truth. But children do not always have the emotional maturity to process the truth of adult conflict. Your desire to be understood must not become their burden. Speak directly with the adults. Seek mediation if appropriate. Write calmly if conversation becomes impossible. But do not recruit grandchildren into the struggle. This is part of wise compassion. You protect their emotional world even while your own heart is hurting. You should also be careful not to turn gifts into tools of competition. Grandparents sometimes try to secure affection through toys, money, sweets, electronics, or special treatment. This can feel harmless. You may say, "I only want them to be happy." But if gifts are being used to become more important than the parents, resentment will grow. If the parents set limits, respect them. Do not say, "What happens at grandmother's house stays at grandmother's house," when the issue involves reasonable parenting rules. That phrase may sound playful, but repeated boundary breaking damages trust. You want access to your grandchildren, but access grows through trust. Trust grows when parents know that you will not undermine them. This does not mean you must agree with every rule. You can discuss concerns privately and respectfully. But once a reasonable decision is made, do not secretly work against it. Grandchildren need adults who cooperate more than adults who compete for loyalty. At the same time, do not let fear make you agree to endless childcare beyond your capacity. Many aging parents are expected to provide free and constant care because they love their grandchildren. You may be asked to care for them several days a week. You may be expected to cancel your own plans. You may be called at the last minute. You may be physically exhausted, but afraid to refuse. You may worry that saying no will make you seem selfish or unnecessary. You may think, if I stop helping, they may stop bringing the children. This fear can keep you trapped. Helping with grandchildren can be joyful and meaningful, but it must fit your health, energy, finances, and daily life. You are not required to become a full-time unpaid caregiver simply because you are a grandparent. You are allowed to say, I can help on these days, but not every day. You are allowed to say, I need more notice. You are allowed to say, I cannot safely manage all 3 children alone. You are allowed to say, I love them, but my body needs rest. Your physical limits are not a moral failure. Ignoring those limits may place you and the children at risk. A tired, stressed, or physically unwell grandparent cannot provide safe care indefinitely. Do not wait until resentment or illness forces a crisis. Speak before the situation becomes unbearable. Your adult child may be disappointed. They may need to rearrange work, childcare, or expenses. That does not mean your boundary is wrong. Their need does not automatically become your permanent responsibility. You can support family without surrendering your entire life. This is the middle path, not refusal of all help, not endless self-sacrifice, wise, sustainable help. You may also need to stop using the grandchildren to fill every emptiness in your own life. This is another difficult truth. Grandchildren can bring great joy, but they cannot carry the responsibility of giving your life meaning. They have their own development, their own friendships, their own interests, their own growing independence. As they become older, they may visit less. They may become busy with school, work, travel, or relationships. If your entire emotional world depends on their attention, their normal growth may feel like rejection. You may begin demanding more contact. You may complain that they have forgotten you. You may use guilt. You may say, I will not be here forever. You may compare them with other grandchildren. You may ask why they call the other side of the family more often. This can push them away. Love becomes heavy when it is asked to carry another person's entire emotional survival. Let your grandchildren love you freely. Do not make them responsible for curing your loneliness. Welcome them warmly. Be present when they visit. Listen more than you lecture. Take interest in who they are becoming. But do not demand that they remain children forever. The same principle of non-attachment applies. You cannot preserve every stage. The small child who ran into your arms will grow. The teenager may become private. The adult may move away. Impermanence is painful, but resisting it creates additional suffering. Love each stage without trying to imprison it. When they are present, be present. When they are absent, do not destroy yourself with stories. The mind may say, they no longer care. But perhaps they are busy, perhaps they are growing, perhaps their lives are expanding. Do not turn every silence into abandonment. At the same time, do not deny genuine exclusion. There is a difference between normal distance and deliberate punishment. Again, clarity is the practice. You may need to seek support when contact is being unfairly restricted. Depending on the seriousness of the situation, a trusted relative, family counselor, mediator, spiritual teacher, or legal professional may help. Do not suffer in silence if you are being threatened, financially exploited, or emotionally abused. But also do not turn immediately to legal or public conflict without considering the long-term consequences. Every action has effects. A legal battle may protect rights in some situations, but it may also deepen family hostility. A public accusation may bring temporary relief, but create lasting damage. This is why wise counsel matters. Do not make major decisions in the heat of anger. Pause. Gather facts. Understand the situation. Consider what outcome you truly want. Do you want revenge? Do you want to prove you are right? Do you want contact restored? Do you want safety? Do you want a respectful agreement? Different goals require different responses. A person driven by pain may act in ways that destroy the very relationship they hope to preserve. Buddhist practice asks you to observe intention. Before sending the message, ask, "What is my intention?" Before making the accusation, ask, "Will this reduce suffering or increase it?" Before involving relatives, ask, "Am I seeking help or gathering allies?" Before speaking to the grandchildren, ask, "Am I protecting them or trying to make them take my side?" These questions slow the mind. They create space between pain and action. Inside that space, wisdom can appear. You must also accept that sometimes no perfect solution exists. You may behave respectfully and still face distance. You may apologize and still not be trusted. You may set a fair boundary and still lose access for a time. You may do everything carefully and still feel misunderstood. This is where the teaching becomes difficult. You cannot force another person to be fair. You cannot control the story they tell. You cannot guarantee that your grandchildren will know your side immediately. You may have to live with uncertainty. The mind will demand justice now. It will say, they must understand. They must admit what they are doing. The children must know the truth. But life does not always give immediate justice. People sometimes understand years later. Children grow and ask questions. Relationships change. Circumstances reveal what arguments could not. You cannot control the timing. Your task is to preserve your conduct. Do not become cruel because others are unfair. Do not lie because someone lies about you. Do not use children as weapons because someone else has. Do not destroy your own mind, trying to defeat another person's behavior. This does not mean passive surrender. It means firm action without hatred. You can protect yourself. You can document important matters. You can seek advice. You can set boundaries. You can refuse financial pressure. You can ask for respectful communication. You can step back from hostile exchanges. You can do all of this without feeding bitterness every day. Bitterness is another form of attachment. You remain connected to the person through anger. You replay the injustice. You imagine future arguments. You rehearse what you will say. You tell the story to everyone. Your body is in the present, but your mind remains trapped in the conflict. The other person may not even be thinking about it while you continue suffering. This is why forgiveness may eventually become important. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the behavior was acceptable. It does not mean removing every boundary. It does not mean returning to the same pattern. Forgiveness means you refuse to let the wound occupy your entire inner life. You release the need to carry hatred every day. You may still seek fairness. You may still remain cautious, but you stop feeding the fire inside yourself. This is especially important in old age. Your remaining years are precious. Do not spend them entirely inside a family conflict you cannot control. You may be grieving missed moments. A birthday you were not invited to, a school event you did not attend, a holiday spent alone, a child growing without regular contact. These losses are real. Do not minimize them. Allow yourself to grieve. Sadness is not weakness. Tears are not failure. But grief and self-destruction are not the same. You can grieve without surrendering every boundary to prevent the next loss. You can miss your grandchildren without allowing their parents unlimited access to your money. You can love them while refusing emotional blackmail. You can keep your heart open while keeping your judgment clear. Perhaps one day the relationship will improve. Perhaps it will not improve in the way you hope. Your peace cannot depend entirely on that outcome. This is the hardest part. You must build a life that still contains meaning, even while part of your heart remains disappointed. Continue caring for your health. Continue maintaining friendships. Continue engaging with your community. Continue reading, learning, praying, meditating, walking, and living. Do not sit beside the phone all day. Do not make every conversation about the grandchildren. Do not let one closed door cause you to ignore every other open door in your life. This is not forgetting them, it is refusing to disappear. You may keep letters, photographs, or gifts for them. You may write memories. You may preserve family stories. You may remain ready to reconnect without constantly chasing. You may send calm messages at appropriate times without begging. You may say, "I love you," and my door is open when respectful contact is possible. Then allow space. Constant chasing may make a controlling person feel more powerful. Calm availability protects your dignity. Do not confuse desperation with devotion. A desperate grandparent may send repeated messages, call relatives, appear unexpectedly, or offer more money to restore contact. These actions may feel like love, but they can also deepen mistrust. Sometimes the strongest action is restraint. You remain loving, you remain reachable, but you stop trying to force what cannot be forced. This is non-attachment in practice. Love without possession, care without control, hope without obsession, openness without self-abandonment. Your grandchildren are precious, but they cannot become the lever through which your entire life is controlled. No relationship should have that power. Not because the relationship is unimportant, but because fear destroys the quality of love. When fear controls you, every interaction becomes tense. You say yes when you mean no. You give while feeling resentment. You remain silent while anger grows. You behave as though one disagreement could end everything. This is not a peaceful way to love. A freer love says, "I deeply value you, but I will not surrender truth to keep you close." It says, "I will respect your parents' role, and I will also respect myself." It says, "I will not involve you in adult conflict." It says, "I will remain available without becoming desperate." This kind of love is more stable because it is not constantly bargaining. It does not say, "I gave you money, so now bring the children." It does not say, "I watched them all week, so now you owe me gratitude." It does not say, "I am your parent, so I deserve unlimited access." It gives where giving is freely chosen. It respects boundaries where boundaries are reasonable. It resists manipulation where manipulation is present. It remains awake. You should also remember that a grandchild may one day form their own understanding. Children grow. They notice patterns. They ask questions. They remember kindness. They remember calmness. They remember who listened to them. You do not need to poison their minds to secure your place in their hearts. Let your conduct speak. Be the person whose presence feels safe. Do not interrogate. Do not compete. Do not demand loyalty. Do not speak with bitterness. Offer warmth without pressure. This leaves a deeper impression than expensive gifts or dramatic declarations. If contact is limited, make the moments you do have peaceful. Do not spend the entire visit complaining about how little you see them. Do not begin with, "You never call me." Do not make the child responsible for the adult's decision. Use the time to connect. Ask about their life. Listen. Share something simple. Let them leave with a memory of peace rather than guilt. This matters. People are drawn toward places where they can breathe. Become such a place. That does not mean becoming silent about serious issues. It means choosing the right person, time, and method. Adult problems should be discussed with adults. The child should not become the battlefield. There may be moments when you must accept that your role has changed. You may once have been central in the family. Now you are one important person among many. This can hurt. You may feel replaced by spouses, work, new routines, or the other side of the family. Attachment may say, "I should still come first." But adulthood reorganizes relationships. Your child's spouse and children may become their primary daily responsibility. This is natural. It is not necessarily rejection. You must allow your adult child to build their own household without treating every change as betrayal. The more you respect this transition, the more space there may be for healthy closeness. The more you compete with it, the more resistance you may create. Again, wisdom distinguishes between normal change and deliberate mistreatment. Do not call every change manipulation, but do not deny manipulation when the pattern is clear. See what is actually happening. Respond to reality, not only to fear. If you are being treated fairly, practice gratitude. If you are being asked to respect a reasonable boundary, practice humility. If you are being pressured through access to the grandchildren, practice courage. If you have crossed boundaries, practice apology. If you are being wronged, practice clarity. If the outcome remains uncertain, practice patience. This is the Buddhist path inside family life. Not theory, not peaceful words spoken when nothing is at stake. Real practice appears when your deepest attachment is touched. Can you love without clinging? Can you remain kind without becoming weak? Can you say no without hatred? Can you grieve without becoming bitter? Can you respect others' authority without surrendering your dignity? Can you respect others' authority without surrendering your dignity? Can you accept that some outcomes remain beyond your control? These questions are difficult because they ask you to release the fantasy that perfect behavior will guarantee perfect results. It will not. You can do everything wisely and still experience pain. But wise action protects something important. It protects the quality of your own mind. You may not control whether the next visit happens. You can control whether you spend the entire week in panic. You may not control what story is told about you. You can control whether you respond with truth or revenge. You may not control when reconciliation comes. You can control whether you remain open without surrendering yourself. This is freedom. Your grandchildren may be one of the greatest joys of your life. Love them fully. Treasure the moments. Support their growth. Respect their parents. Be generous where generosity is healthy. Offer wisdom without forcing it. But never let the fear of losing access turn you into someone who can be threatened into abandoning every boundary. A relationship maintained only through obedience is not secure. A visit purchased through money is not freely given. Affection controlled through fear cannot bring lasting peace. Keep your heart soft, but keep your eyes open. Remain loving, but remain clear. Do not close the door in anger. Do not leave it so unguarded that anyone can enter and destroy your peace. Let the door remain open to respect, honesty, and reconciliation. Let manipulation remain outside. You can love your grandchildren without making them responsible for your happiness. You can respect their parents without accepting emotional blackmail. You can hope for closeness without surrendering your entire life to the fear of distance. This is not easy. But old age is not the time to live under constant threat. It is the time to understand what love truly is. Love is not possession. Love is not control. Love is not obedience purchased through fear. Love is the wish for another person's well-being, combined with the wisdom not to destroy your own. Hold your grandchildren in your heart, but do not allow anyone to use that love as a weapon against you. 6. Stop explaining every boundary until it becomes a negotiation. Many aging parents finally understand that they need boundaries, but then they make one serious mistake. They explain the boundary so much that it stops being a boundary and becomes a negotiation. You may begin with a clear answer. I cannot lend you more money. I am not able to look after the children this weekend. I need you to call before coming to my home. I will not tolerate being spoken to disrespectfully. I cannot become involved in this argument. Your answer is reasonable, clear, and complete. But then your adult child becomes upset. They ask why. You explain. They disagree with your explanation, so you explain again. They challenge your first reason, so you offer a second reason. When they challenge the second reason, you give a third. Before long, you are no longer calmly expressing a decision. You are defending yourself as though you have committed a crime. The conversation begins to feel like a courtroom. Your child becomes the judge. You become the accused. Your money, your health, your time, your home, your energy, and your decisions are placed on trial. You feel pressure to prove that your boundary is reasonable. You believe that if you can only explain it perfectly, your child will finally understand, agree, and stop being upset. But this is often an illusion. Sometimes people do not continue arguing because they fail to understand your answer. They continue arguing because they do not like your answer. There is a major difference. When someone genuinely does not understand, a clear explanation can help. When someone understands but wants you to change your decision, more explanation simply gives them more material to argue against. You say, "I cannot lend you money because I need it for my medical expenses." They reply, "You are healthy. You are worrying about problems that may never happen." You say, "I also need money for home repairs." They answer, "The house is fine. Those repairs can wait." You say, "I need to protect my savings because I do not know how long I will live." They respond, "We already told you that we will care for you." You say, "I am not comfortable risking my security." They accuse you of not trusting them. Each time you offer a new explanation, another argument appears. Eventually, you become exhausted. You begin doubting yourself. You feel guilty for creating conflict. You want the conversation to end, so you surrender. You say yes. The immediate pressure disappears, but something important has been taught. Your child has learned that your first answer is not final. They have learned that your no means keep pushing. They have learned that if they argue long enough, question every reason, express enough disappointment, or accuse you of selfishness, you may eventually change your mind. You have also taught yourself something damaging. You have taught yourself that your decisions are not valid unless another person approves of them. This is the deeper problem. You are not only explaining because you want to communicate. You are explaining because you are seeking permission. You want your adult child to confirm that you are still a good parent. You want them to say, "I understand, you are right." You want the relationship to remain peaceful. You want to avoid disappointment, anger, silence, or criticism. So you continue speaking. You search for the perfect reason that will remove all conflict. But no explanation can guarantee another person's agreement. No boundary can prevent every emotional reaction. No carefully chosen sentence can force someone to accept what they do not want to accept. This is why boundaries require more than words. They require the ability to tolerate discomfort. Saying no is often the easy part. Remaining with the no while another person is disappointed is the real practice. Many people believe they cannot set boundaries because they do not know the right words. Usually, the problem is not vocabulary. The problem is fear. You may know exactly what needs to be said, but you are afraid of what will happen after you say it. You are afraid your child will become angry. You are afraid they will withdraw affection. You are afraid they will accuse you of changing. You are afraid they will speak badly about you to relatives. You are afraid they will stop visiting. You are afraid they will keep the grandchildren away. You are afraid you will be alone with guilt after the conversation ends. Because of this fear, you try to make your boundary painless for everyone. But boundaries are sometimes uncomfortable. A boundary changes an existing pattern. If someone has benefited from your lack of limits, they may resist when limits appear. Their resistance does not necessarily mean you communicated badly. It may simply mean they preferred the previous arrangement. Suppose you have always allowed your adult son to visit without warning. He has a key. He enters whenever he wishes. Sometimes he brings other people. Sometimes he arrives when you are resting. You become uncomfortable, but you remain silent because you do not want him to feel unwelcome. Eventually you say, "Please call me before coming." This is reasonable. But he responds, "Why do I need permission to visit my own parent?" You explain that you need privacy. He says, What are you hiding? You explain that your health requires rest. He says, I will not disturb you. You explain that sometimes you have plans. He says, I am family. Why should family need appointments? Now you begin questioning whether your request is unfair. It is not unfair. You are allowed to know who is entering your home and when. Your adult child's dislike of the boundary does not remove your right to have it. You do not need 10 reasons. You can say, you are welcome here, but I need you to call before visiting. If the argument continues, you can repeat the same statement, not with anger, not with sarcasm, not with a long speech, simply with consistency. I understand that you do not like this. I still need you to call before coming. This method is powerful because it refuses to turn the boundary into a debate. You acknowledge the other person's emotion without surrendering the decision. They are allowed to dislike it. You are allowed to maintain it. This is one of the hardest ideas for many parents to accept. Your adult children do not have to agree with every boundary for the boundary to be valid. Agreement is not required. Understanding is helpful, but it is not always necessary. Respectful behavior is what matters. Your child may think your rule is unnecessary. They may think you are being cautious, difficult, or old-fashioned. They are allowed to think that. The question is whether they respect your decision, despite their opinion. Healthy adult relationships are not built on complete agreement. They are built on the ability to remain respectful when agreement is absent. The Buddhist path teaches us to loosen attachment to approval. This includes the approval of those closest to us. Non-attachment does not mean you stop caring about your child's feelings. It means you do not make their agreement the condition for your inner peace. You can hear their disappointment. You can consider whether they have raised a valid concern. You can examine yourself honestly. But after careful reflection, you must be able to make a decision without endless dependence on their approval. This is inner authority. Inner authority does not mean stubbornness. A stubborn person refuses to listen because the ego wants to win. A wise person listens, reflects, and then decides. The difference is important. You should not use the language of boundaries to avoid accountability. If your child says you have hurt them, listen. If they point out inconsistency, consider it. If they explain that your behavior is controlling, examine whether they are right. A boundary should protect dignity and well-being. It should not be used to punish, dominate, or silence legitimate concerns. But once you have listened honestly and reached a reasonable decision, you do not need to reopen the case every time someone becomes emotional. Many aging parents struggle because they confuse another person's strong emotion with evidence that they have done something wrong. Your son becomes angry, so you think your boundary was cruel. Your daughter cries, so you assume you must change your answer. Your child becomes silent, so you immediately call back and apologize. But emotions are not always proof. A person can feel genuinely hurt by a reasonable boundary. A person can feel angry because they did not get what they wanted. A person can cry because reality is disappointing. You can care about their feelings without allowing those feelings to control your decisions. This is not lack of compassion. It is emotional clarity. Suppose your daughter asks you to care for her children every weekday. You love your grandchildren, but your health is declining. You become tired easily. You need medical appointments and rest. You say that you can help 2 days a week, but not 5. She becomes upset. She says childcare is expensive. She says her work depends on you. She reminds you that family should help family. You begin explaining your physical pain. She says other grandparents manage. You explain your doctor's advice. She says you are exaggerating. You explain that you cannot recover after long days. She says the children are not difficult. Soon, you are defending the reality of your own body. Stop. Your physical limit does not require another person's approval. You can say, I understand this creates difficulty for you. I can help 2 days a week, but I cannot provide care every day. She may remain upset. That does not create more strength in your body. Her financial pressure does not erase your health. Her need does not automatically become your obligation. You can sympathize without sacrificing yourself beyond your capacity. The problem is that many parents were trained to believe that love means never disappointing family. They spent decades giving. They adjusted their schedules. They put their own needs last. They became proud of being the person who was always available. Now, when they begin saying no, the change feels unnatural. They may even feel cruel. But setting a limit after years of overgiving is not cruelty. It is correction. A life without boundaries often produces resentment. You continue helping, but the help is no longer freely given. You smile while feeling trapped. You agree while silently blaming the other person. You say, "It is fine," when it is not fine. Then one day, years of frustration come out in a harsh sentence. The adult child is shocked because you never clearly expressed your limits. From their perspective, everything was acceptable until the sudden explosion. This is why a calm boundary is kinder than silent resentment. A clear no may disappoint someone for a day. Unspoken resentment can poison a relationship for years. You must also understand the difference between a request and a boundary. A request asks another person to change their behavior. A boundary explains what you will do if the behavior continues. You may request, "Please do not shout at me." That is a reasonable request, but the other person still controls whether they shout. A boundary adds your own action. If you continue shouting, I will end the conversation. Now the boundary depends on you. You are not trying to control their voice. You are deciding what you will participate in. This distinction gives you power without aggression. You cannot force your adult child to speak respectfully. You can refuse to remain in a conversation where disrespect continues. You cannot force them to call before visiting. You can stop opening the door to unannounced visits or change access to your home. You cannot force them to repay a loan. You can decide not to lend again. You cannot force them to stop bringing every family argument to you. You can decline to participate. You cannot force them to approve of your choices. You can stop treating their approval as permission. A boundary concerns your behavior, your participation, your property, your time, and your energy. It is not a demand that another person become exactly who you want them to be. This is why clear boundaries can exist without control. You are not saying, "You must never become angry." You are saying, "I will not remain present while anger becomes verbal abuse." You are not saying, "You must organize your life according to me." You are saying, "I cannot continue solving the consequences of your decisions." You are not saying, "You must visit every week." You are saying, "When you visit, I expect basic respect in my home." The difference matters. Some older parents repeatedly announce boundaries but do not enforce them. They say, "This is the last time I will lend money." Then the next crisis arrives, and they give again. They say, "I will not allow shouting." Then they remain on the phone through 30 minutes of insults. They say, "You must call before coming." Then they welcome every unannounced visit without saying anything. They say, "I cannot keep solving this problem." Then they immediately begin solving it. This creates confusion. Your words say one thing, your actions say another. People usually learn more from your actions. If every boundary disappears under pressure, pressure will continue. This does not necessarily mean your children are evil. Human beings repeat behavior that works. If arguing changes your no into yes, they will argue. If silence makes you panic and apologize, silence may be used again. If guilt causes you to surrender, guilt becomes an effective tool. Consistency changes the pattern. At first, consistency may create more resistance, not less. This is important to understand. When a familiar method stops working, a person may use it more strongly before giving up. If guilt used to make you say yes, the guilt may become more intense when you first begin refusing. Your child may become more emotional. They may bring up old mistakes. They may involve relatives. They may accuse you of becoming selfish. They may say someone has influenced you. This does not mean the boundary is failing. It may mean the old pattern is being challenged. You must remain calm. Do not respond to emotional intensity with greater emotional intensity. Do not shout to prove strength. Do not insult. Do not threaten things you do not intend to do. Do not make dramatic declarations such as, "You are no longer my child." A strong boundary does not need theatrical anger. In fact, anger often weakens your position because it shifts attention from the original issue to your reaction. Your child may say, "Look how unreasonable you are." Then the conversation becomes about your tone instead of their behavior. Calmness keeps the issue clear. You can say, "I understand that you are upset. My decision remains the same." You can say, "We are repeating the same points. I am not going to continue arguing." You can say, "We can speak again when the conversation is calmer." You can say, "I have already explained what I can do." Then stop. Silence can be difficult after setting a boundary. You may feel pressure to fill it. Your child stares at you. They wait. You become uncomfortable. You begin explaining again. Learn to let the silence exist. You do not need to rescue every conversation from discomfort. Sometimes silence is the space in which reality is finally felt. If you immediately speak again, you may weaken the clarity of what you just said. Breathe. Allow them to process. Allow yourself to remain still. The Buddhist practice of mindfulness becomes very real in these moments. You may feel guilt as tightness in the chest. You may feel fear in the stomach. You may notice heat in the face. The mind may produce urgent thoughts. Change the answer. Apologize. Give them what they want. Do not let them leave angry. Observe these sensations and thoughts without treating them as commands. A feeling is not a command. Fear is not a command. Guilt is not a command. Another person's anger is not a command. These experiences arise in the mind and body. They feel intense. Then they change. If you immediately obey them, you never discover that discomfort can pass without surrender. This is one of the deepest benefits of maintaining a boundary. You are not only teaching others how to treat you, you are teaching your own mind that discomfort is survivable. Perhaps for most of your life, you avoided conflict. Whenever someone became angry, you gave in. Whenever someone withdrew affection, you chased them. Whenever tension entered the room, you tried to remove it. This pattern may have begun in childhood. Perhaps you grew up in a home where peace depended on keeping a powerful person happy. Perhaps you learned that disagreement was dangerous. Perhaps silence meant punishment. Perhaps love disappeared whenever you expressed your own needs. Now, even in old age, the body may react to conflict as though you are still a frightened child. This is why setting boundaries can feel physically dangerous, even when no immediate danger exists. You must become compassionate toward this part of yourself. Do not mock yourself for feeling afraid. Do not say, "I am weak." Understand that your nervous system may be repeating an old lesson, then teach it a new lesson. You can survive someone's disappointment. You can survive an angry message. You can survive a few days of silence. You can survive being misunderstood. You do not need to abandon yourself to restore immediate calm. Each time you maintain a wise boundary, without hatred, you develop inner stability. You also need to stop apologizing for having reasonable needs. Some parents begin every boundary with an apology. "I am so sorry, but I cannot give you money. I am sorry, but I need rest. I am sorry, but I cannot let you move into my home." There is nothing wrong with expressing regret that you cannot help, but constant apology can communicate that your boundary is a wrongdoing. It can make you sound as though you need forgiveness for protecting yourself. You can be kind without treating your needs as shameful. Instead of saying, "I am sorry for being difficult," say, "I understand this is disappointing." Instead of saying, "I am sorry I cannot be the parent you need," say, "This is what I am realistically able to do." Instead of saying, "Please forgive me for saying no," say, "I hope you find another solution." These statements contain compassion without self-condemnation. You may also need to stop using uncertain language when your decision is clear. Perhaps, maybe, I will try, we will see, I do not know. These words can be appropriate when you truly have not decided. But when you already know the answer is no, vague language creates false hope and invites continued pressure. If you say, maybe I can lend the money, the person hears possibility. If you say, I will try to watch the children, they may plan as though you agreed. If you say, we will see about moving in, they may continue preparing. Clarity is kinder. I cannot lend the money. I am not available that day. You cannot move into my home. These statements may sound firm, but they prevent confusion. You can still speak gently. Firmness and cruelty are not the same thing. Cruelty aims to wound. Firmness aims to make reality clear. You should also avoid using excessive justification through private information. Some adult children pressure parents to reveal every detail of their finances, health, schedule, or relationships in order to prove that a boundary is necessary. You do not owe a complete report of your life every time you say no. You may choose to explain enough to provide context, but privacy remains your right. You can say, I have financial commitments I need to protect. You do not have to reveal every account balance. You can say, my health does not allow me to take this on. You do not have to defend every symptom. You can say, I have other plans. You do not have to prove that your plans are important enough. Rest is a plan. Silence is a plan. Time alone is a plan. You do not need to be busy with something other people consider important before your time deserves respect. Aging parents are often treated as though their schedules are empty because they no longer work full-time. Adult children may assume you are at home, so you are available. But availability is not created simply by the absence of employment. You may need rest. You may have appointments. You may want time with friends. You may have spiritual practices. You may simply want a quiet day. Your life does not become public property when you retire. You are allowed to decide how your time is used. You should communicate this before resentment grows. Do not wait until you are exhausted and angry. Say, please ask me before making plans that involve my time. Say, do not tell the children I will care for them before checking with me. Say, I may be at home, but that does not mean I am always available. Then behave consistently. If plans are made without consulting you, do not automatically accept them. Otherwise, the pattern continues. Your boundary may also need consequences, but consequences should be natural and proportionate. A consequence is not revenge. If someone repeatedly arrives without notice, the consequence may be that you do not allow the visit. If someone shouts during phone calls, the consequence may be ending the call. If borrowed money is not repaid, the consequence may be refusing future loans. If someone repeatedly brings family gossip, the consequence may be changing the subject or ending the conversation. The consequence should be connected to the behavior. Do not respond to one rude phone call by threatening to remove someone from your will. Do not respond to a missed visit with months of silence. Extreme punishment creates more conflict and may reveal that your goal is control rather than protection. The middle path requires proportion. Enough firmness to protect your peace. Enough restraint to avoid unnecessary harm. Sometimes a boundary must be repeated many times. Do not assume that saying it once will permanently change a pattern built over decades. You may need to say, I cannot discuss this every time the topic arises. You may need to end several calls before shouting stops. You may need to refuse several requests before people understand that your answer is not changing. Repetition is different from over-explaining. Over-explaining adds new arguments. Repetition calmly restates the same boundary. I understand what you are saying. I cannot do that. I hear that you are disappointed. My answer remains no. We have discussed this already. I am not changing my decision. These statements protect clarity. You are not required to invent a new reason every time the request returns. The reason does not change simply because the pressure continues. Some people will accuse you of becoming cold. They may say, "You have changed." Perhaps you have. Perhaps you are no longer willing to be controlled by guilt. Perhaps you have stopped saying yes automatically. Perhaps you have begun respecting your health, finances, and peace. Change is not always a problem. Sometimes change is what healing looks like from the outside. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may describe your healing as selfishness. That does not mean you should ignore all criticism. Examine it, but do not automatically believe it. Ask yourself whether your boundary is fair, necessary, and expressed respectfully. Ask whether you would accept the same boundary from another person. Ask whether it protects well-being rather than punishing disagreement. If the answer is yes, remain steady. You must also recognize when a conversation is no longer productive. Some discussions reach a point where both sides repeat themselves. You have explained. They have objected. Nothing new is being said. Continuing only increases anger. You can say, "We are going in circles. I am going to end this conversation now." This is not avoidance. It is recognizing that further discussion is no longer useful. You may return to the issue later when emotions are calmer, but you are not required to remain inside an endless argument. Your time and nervous system matter. A conversation does not become productive simply because it is long. Sometimes the wisest sentence is, "There is nothing more to add." Then stop. Do not send another message an hour later because guilt appears. Do not call to soften the decision. Give the situation space. Your child may need time to adjust. You may need time to calm your own mind. Immediate repair is not always possible or necessary. Not every difficult conversation must end with both people feeling happy. Sometimes the most honest ending is temporary discomfort. This is difficult for parents who feel responsible for everyone's emotions. You may believe that your child must leave the conversation feeling loved, but love and disappointment can exist together. Your child may know you love them and still feel angry. You may love them and still refuse their request. A healthy relationship must have room for both. If love disappears whenever one person says no, the relationship is not mature. Mature love does not require constant agreement. It survives frustration. It allows difference. It respects autonomy. It does not treat every boundary as rejection. You are helping create a more adult relationship when you stop behaving as though your grown child must never be disappointed. They are capable of experiencing frustration. They are capable of finding another solution. They are capable of managing their reaction. You do not need to rescue them from the emotional consequence of hearing no. You also do not need to punish yourself afterward. Many parents maintain the boundary outwardly, but torture themselves inwardly. They replay the conversation all night. They imagine what their child is saying to others. They review every word. They wonder whether their tone was wrong. They create imaginary future disasters. This mental punishment can become so intense that they finally reverse the decision just to gain relief. Mindfulness is essential here. After a difficult conversation, separate facts from stories. The fact may be that your child became angry. The story may be that they will never speak to you again. The fact may be that they disagreed. The story may be that they no longer love you. The fact may be that you refused a request. The story may be that you are a terrible parent. Do not confuse the story with reality. Return to what you know. You acted after careful thought. You spoke respectfully. You protected a legitimate need. The future is uncertain. Let it remain uncertain. Do not fill uncertainty with punishment. You may reflect on your behavior later. Perhaps you were harsher than necessary. If so, you can apologize for the tone without removing the boundary. This is important. You can say, "I regret speaking angrily. I should have expressed myself more calmly. However, my decision has not changed." An apology does not require surrender. You can repair the manner while maintaining the message. Many parents fear that apologizing will weaken their authority. It does not. Honest accountability strengthens trust. What weakens authority is inconsistency, manipulation, and uncontrolled anger. You can be humble and firm at the same time. You can admit a mistake without giving up your right to a boundary. You should also prepare simple sentences before difficult conversations. When emotions rise, the mind becomes less clear. Having calm words ready can prevent over-explaining. I need time before making a decision. I am not able to agree to that. I understand that you are upset. I will not discuss this while we are shouting. I have explained my decision. We can speak again later. This is not open for further negotiation. These sentences are not magical. They will not prevent every argument, but they help you remain grounded. The true power is not in the words. It is in your willingness to act consistently with them. Boundaries without action are wishes. Action gives the words meaning. There may be serious situations in which ordinary family conversations are not enough. If an adult child is financially exploiting you, threatening you, controlling access to money, pressuring you to sign documents, or using intimidation, seek independent support. Speak privately with a trusted professional, legal advisor, counselor, doctor, social worker, or responsible person outside the conflict. Do not allow shame to keep you silent. Some parents think asking for help means betraying the family. But protecting yourself from exploitation is not betrayal. Family privacy should not become a hiding place for abuse. A person does not gain the right to control you because they are your child. At the same time, do not label every disagreement as abuse. Words matter. A child who becomes frustrated once is not automatically manipulative. A difficult conversation is not necessarily exploitation. Look for patterns, look for repeated pressure, look for threats, control, intimidation, deception, and disregard for your well-being. Respond proportionately. Clear seeing prevents both denial and exaggeration. This lesson is not asking you to become suspicious, cold, or rigid. It is asking you to stop handing over your decisions through excessive explanation. Your adult children deserve honesty. They do not deserve unlimited control over your choices. You deserve respect. You do not deserve automatic obedience from them either. A healthy relationship allows both sides to say no. A healthy relationship allows disagreement without punishment. A healthy relationship does not require either person to prove love by surrendering every limit. This balance may be new in your family. It may feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is not always danger. Sometimes discomfort is the feeling of a healthier pattern being born. Every time you say what you mean calmly, you strengthen honesty. Every time you stop over-explaining, you strengthen self-respect. Every time you allow another person to be disappointed without rushing to fix it, you strengthen inner freedom. Every time you enforce a reasonable consequence without anger, you teach others that your words have meaning. This is not about winning. If you approach boundaries as a battle, someone must lose. That attitude will harden the relationship. The goal is not to defeat your child. The goal is to create conditions where love can exist without exploitation, resentment, or fear. A boundary protects the relationship from the damage caused by overgiving. It protects the parent from exhaustion. It protects the adult child from dependence. It protects communication from hidden anger. It protects love from becoming obligation. Some relationships may improve when boundaries become clear. Others may become more distant. You cannot control the outcome. Your task is to act wisely. Do not maintain a harmful pattern simply because change may reveal an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps someone values your presence. Perhaps they mainly value what you provide. Boundaries often reveal the difference. This revelation can hurt, but living inside false closeness also hurts. You deserve relationships that can survive a respectful no. You deserve to speak without pleading for permission. You deserve to make decisions about your money, home, body, and time without enduring a courtroom trial. You can listen to objections. You can remain open to new information. You can change your mind when wisdom genuinely changes. But do not change your mind merely because pressure becomes uncomfortable. Make the difference clear within yourself. Changing your decision after thoughtful reflection is flexibility. Changing it simply to stop another person's anger is surrender. Flexibility comes from wisdom. Surrender comes from fear. As you grow older, you have less time and energy to spend inside endless arguments. Protect them carefully. You do not need to attend every debate to which you are invited. You do not need to answer every accusation. You do not need to prove your goodness to everyone. You do not need to explain the same boundary 20 times. Say what is true. Say it calmly. Say enough to be understood. Then allow the other person to respond. Their response belongs to them. Your conduct belongs to you. This is the practice. Not controlling their emotions. Not forcing agreement. Not removing every discomfort. Remaining aware while guilt, fear, and pressure arise. Choosing truth without cruelty. Choosing firmness without hatred. Choosing compassion without self-abandonment. You can love your adult children and still end an unhealthy conversation. You can care about their difficulties and still refuse to solve them. You can understand their disappointment and still maintain your decision. You can apologize for speaking harshly without apologizing for having a boundary. You can say no without turning the relationship into war. Your no does not need to be loud to be strong. It does not need to be repeated with anger. It does not need to be supported by endless reasons. Sometimes the clearest expression of self-respect is a calm sentence followed by consistent action. I love you, but I cannot do that. I hear you, but my decision remains the same. We can speak again when we are calmer. This boundary is not a punishment. It is what I need to protect my well-being. Then stop explaining. Let the silence hold the truth. Let the discomfort pass. Let the other person adjust in their own time. You are not responsible for turning every boundary into something everyone likes. You are responsible for making it wise, fair, and respectful. That is enough. 7. Love your children without making them the owners of your final years. This may be the most important lesson of all, because every previous weakness grows from one central attachment, the belief that your adult children must remain at the center of your life for you to feel valuable, loved, and complete. Your children are part of your life, but they are not the owners of your life. They may be among the people you love most deeply. You may have sacrificed more for them than anyone will ever fully understand. You may have spent decades protecting them, providing for them, worrying about them, guiding them, forgiving them, and building your future around their needs. Their happiness may have shaped your decisions for most of your adult life, but love does not give another person ownership of your remaining years. Being a parent does not mean your life must permanently revolve around the moods, demands, choices, crises, and approval of your adult children. There comes a time when parenthood must change. When children are young, your role is active and direct. You feed them, teach them, protect them, correct them, make decisions for them, and carry responsibilities they are not yet capable of carrying. Their dependence is natural because they are still developing. But when they become adults, the relationship must gradually become different. You are still their parent, but you are no longer supposed to manage every part of their life. You are no longer responsible for preventing every mistake. You are no longer required to approve every decision. You are no longer obligated to solve every crisis. They have become adults, and adulthood means carrying responsibility for one's own choices. The difficulty is that while your children grow older, your emotional identity may remain fixed in the past. You may still see the little boy who once needed your protection. You may still see the little girl who once ran to you when she was afraid. You may remember their small hands, their childhood voices, their first day at school, their illnesses, their disappointments, and the moments when they depended completely on you. Those memories are precious, but memories can also create attachment. You may begin treating the adult in front of you as though they are still the child in your memory. You may continue rescuing them because part of you cannot accept that they must now rescue themselves. You may continue sacrificing because sacrifice is the language through which you learn to express love. You may continue interfering because stepping back feels like abandonment. You may continue giving because you do not know who you are when nobody needs you. This is where the deeper struggle begins. For many years, being needed gave your life structure and meaning. Someone needed meals prepared, bills paid, clothes washed, problems solved, advice given, and protection provided. You woke up knowing your role. Even when parenting was exhausting, it made you feel necessary. Then the children grew. They moved out, they married, they found work, they created their own homes, they developed opinions different from yours. They began making decisions without asking you. They no longer needed daily supervision. The house became quieter, and a question appeared that you may never have prepared yourself to answer. Who am I when my children no longer need me in the same way? This question can be frightening. You may have spent so many years being a mother or father that you forgot you were also a human being with an inner life beyond parenthood. You may have postponed your interests. You may have neglected friendships. You may have ignored dreams. You may have abandoned parts of yourself because family responsibilities came first. Now those responsibilities have changed, but instead of rebuilding your own life, you may continue searching for ways to remain necessary. You may offer help before it is requested. You may enter problems that are not yours. You may give money when money is not the true solution. You may insist on doing things your adult children can do themselves. You may become offended when they do not consult you. You may create constant availability so they will keep depending on you. Then you may complain that they take too much from you, even while part of you is afraid that they may stop asking. This contradiction is important to understand. You may say that your children use you, but you must also examine whether you have made being used part of your identity. This does not excuse exploitation or disrespect. Your adult children are responsible for their conduct. But Buddhist wisdom asks you to examine your own attachment honestly. Do you feel valuable only when someone needs something from you? Do you feel forgotten when your children solve their problems without you? Do you feel hurt when they seek advice from someone else? Do you become anxious when they do not share every detail of their lives? Do you feel rejected when they spend more time with their spouse, friends, or children? Do you interpret their independence as a sign that you no longer matter? These feelings do not make you a bad parent. They show that your identity has become attached to a role that is changing. Everything conditioned is impermanent. Bodies change, families change, relationships change, roles change. The person who was once responsible for a small child eventually becomes the parent of an independent adult. If you refuse to let the role change, suffering follows. You may begin competing with your child's spouse. You may feel replaced when they prioritize their own household. You may criticize the way they spend holidays. You may accuse them of forgetting you because they cannot visit as often as you want. You may expect them to remain emotionally organized around you, even though they now have responsibilities of their own. This expectation can slowly poison love. Your adult child may begin visiting out of obligation rather than genuine affection. They may call because they fear your disappointment, not because they freely want connection. They may hide parts of their lives because every decision becomes a debate. They may become distant because closeness feels like surrendering autonomy. Then you feel abandoned, so you hold on more tightly. The tighter you hold, the more they pull away. This is the cycle of attachment. Attachment says, "You must remain close in the way I demand, or I cannot be peaceful." Love says, "I value our connection, but I respect that your life belongs to you." Attachment says, "After everything I did, you owe me constant access." Love says, "I gave because you were my child, not because I was purchasing control over your adulthood." Attachment says, "Your independence proves that I am no longer important." Love says, Your independence may be evidence that my work as a parent has succeeded. This shift is difficult because it requires releasing a form of authority you carried for many years. You must stop expecting to be consulted about everything. You must stop treating every different decision as disrespect. Your child may choose a career you do not understand. They may raise their children differently. They may live in another city. They may marry someone you would not have chosen. They may follow a lifestyle different from yours. You are allowed to have concerns. You are allowed to offer advice respectfully. But after you have spoken, the decision remains theirs. Love does not give you the right to take over another adult's path. You must let them experience life directly. They will make mistakes. They may ignore wise advice. They may suffer consequences you predicted. The mind will say, "I told you this would happen." Be careful. There may be a moment when your child needs compassion more than proof that you were right. Wisdom does not use another person's suffering as an opportunity to win an argument. You can say, "I am sorry you are going through this. What do you believe you need to do next?" You do not have to say, "I warned you." Perhaps you did warn them. Perhaps they remember. Repeating it may only add shame to a painful lesson. Let life teach what your words could not. This is not passivity. It is respect for the learning process of another human being. Your children have their own karma, which means their actions produce consequences that they must eventually understand. You cannot live so carefully on their behalf that you remove every consequence from their path. If you keep rescuing them, you may delay the very awakening you are hoping for. Sometimes a person changes only when the old way becomes too painful to continue. If the parent repeatedly removes that pain, the pattern can survive for years. You may believe you are saving the child, while you are actually saving the behavior that is harming them. Love must be combined with wisdom. Without wisdom, love can become fear, control, dependence, and exhaustion. You must also stop measuring your worth by how often your children contact you. Many aging parents begin counting. How many days since the last call? How many weeks since the last visit? How much time did they spend with the other side of the family? Why did they answer someone else's message but not yours? Why did they post something online but not call you? The mind gathers evidence and creates a painful conclusion. They do not care about me. Perhaps they should call more often. Perhaps they have become neglectful. Perhaps the relationship genuinely needs attention. But not every period of silence means rejection. Adult life becomes crowded. Work creates pressure. Marriage requires attention. Children create constant responsibility. Health, travel, finances, and ordinary exhaustion consume time. You may have forgotten how demanding the middle years of life can be. When you were raising children, did you always call your own parents as often as they wanted? Did you always understand their loneliness? Did you sometimes become busy and assume there would be more time later? Remembering your own limitations can create compassion. This does not mean accepting complete neglect. It means resisting the habit of turning every delay into a personal insult. You can express your need honestly. You can say, "I miss speaking with you. Could we choose a regular time to talk?" That is healthier than saying, "You have forgotten the person who gave you everything." The first statement invites connection. The second creates guilt. Guilt may produce a phone call, but it will not necessarily produce closeness. A person who calls because they feel emotionally threatened may speak with you while secretly resenting the conversation. You do not want forced attention. You want sincere connection. Sincere connection cannot be controlled through guilt. You must give it room to breathe. This also means accepting that your adult children may not express love in the exact way you expect. One child may call often but offer little practical help. Another may call less often but appear immediately during an emergency. One may express love through words. Another may express it by repairing your home, managing appointments, bringing food, or solving practical problems. Do not compare every child according to one standard. Comparison creates resentment and competition. You may say, "Your sister calls every day. Why can you not be like her?" The child may then feel that nothing they do will be appreciated unless they become someone else. Observe the relationship as it is. Ask whether care exists, even if it appears in a different form. At the same time, do not deny reality when care is absent. Some adult children truly become distant, selfish, or exploitative. Some remember the parent only when money, childcare, property, or assistance is needed. You must see this clearly without allowing it to destroy your entire life. Their failure to appreciate you is painful, but it does not prove your life has no value. Their absence creates an empty space, but you do not have to make that empty space the center of every day. This is where you must stop waiting. Many parents spend old age waiting for their children to become the people they hoped they would become. They wait for an apology. They wait for gratitude. They wait for recognition. They wait for more visits. They wait for the child to understand their sacrifices. They wait for the relationship to return to the way it once was. While they wait, life continues passing. The morning arrives, but they are thinking about yesterday's disappointment. A beautiful day appears, but they remain beside the phone. Someone else offers friendship, but they are too focused on the child who does not call. An opportunity to travel, learn, serve, or connect appears, but they say, "Perhaps later." How much life will you postpone while waiting for another person to change? You cannot place your remaining years on hold until your children behave exactly as you wish. Perhaps they will change. People sometimes mature late. A child may understand a parent only after becoming older. They may recognize your sacrifices after facing similar responsibilities. They may return with greater humility. But this awakening cannot be forced. You cannot control its timing. You cannot spend every day demanding that a flower open before its season. You can keep the relationship available where appropriate. You can remain willing to communicate. You can acknowledge your own mistakes. You can apologize where necessary. You can set boundaries without closing your heart. Then you must live. Do not confuse waiting with love. Sometimes waiting is attachment refusing to accept reality. You are still alive now. Your body may be older, but the present moment still belongs to you. The final years of life are not merely the leftovers after your children have taken the important part. These years have their own value. They can become years of clarity, simplicity, spiritual depth, reconciliation, learning, service, and peace. But only if you stop believing that your purpose ended when active parenting ended. Your task now may not be to raise children, it may be to understand your own mind. For decades, you were occupied with external duties. Now life may be inviting you inward. Who are you beneath your family role? Who are you when nobody is asking for advice? Who are you when the house is quiet? Who are you when your usefulness is not being measured? These questions can open a deeper path. The Buddhist understanding of self asks us to examine how identity is constructed. You say, "I am a mother. I am a father." These roles are real in ordinary life, but they are not the whole of what you are. The role changes, the child grows, the body ages. Eventually, even the role itself will end. If all your meaning depends on one temporary identity, impermanence will feel like destruction. But if you begin observing the role without becoming completely imprisoned by it, something opens. You can still love being a parent. You can still treasure your family. But you do not disappear when the role changes. You remain a conscious human being, capable of awareness, compassion, growth, and inner freedom. This realization is not selfish. It may actually improve your relationship with your children. When your entire emotional survival no longer depends on them, your love becomes lighter. You stop demanding constant reassurance. You stop interpreting every absence as rejection. You stop using guilt to pull them closer. You stop offering unwanted advice simply to remain important. You stop competing with their spouse or children. You become easier to be with because your presence no longer contains an invisible demand. You are not silently asking, "Prove that I still matter." You know that you matter. Then the relationship can become more genuine. Your child can visit because they want to, not because they fear punishment. They can share their life without fearing that you will take control. They can disagree without being accused of betrayal. This is the foundation of an adult relationship. Many parents continue relating to adult children through command, correction, and authority. They speak as though adulthood never arrived. They believe age automatically makes them right. They expect obedience because they are the parent. But respect cannot be demanded only through hierarchy. A grown child should respect you, but you must also respect their adulthood. You cannot ask for boundaries while ignoring theirs. You cannot demand privacy while entering their affairs without permission. You cannot ask them not to control you while trying to control their marriage, household, finances, or parenting. Wisdom requires fairness. The adult relationship must contain mutual dignity. You may not approve of every choice, but you must recognize their right to choose. They may not approve of your boundaries, but they must recognize your right to have them. This balance allows closeness without ownership. You must also release the belief that sacrifice creates a permanent debt. You may have worked long hours, you may have gone without things you wanted, you may have paid for education, you may have cared for them through illness, you may have stayed in a difficult marriage because you believed the children needed stability. You may have given decades of your strength. These sacrifices matter. But be careful what you do with the memory of them. If you repeatedly say, "After everything I did for you," then sacrifice becomes an invoice. The child is told that their entire existence is a debt they can never repay. This creates guilt, not gratitude. You chose many of those sacrifices because you were the parent. Some sacrifices may have been necessary, some may have been unwise, some may have been made without anyone asking you. Do not turn every past choice into a claim over another person's future. Let generosity remain generosity. If you gave freely, do not demand repayment through obedience. If you gave with hidden expectations, acknowledge that honestly. Perhaps part of you expected your children to care for you in exactly the way you cared for them. Perhaps you believed they would always place you first. Perhaps you thought sacrifice guaranteed loyalty. But human relationships do not operate like financial accounts. You cannot deposit years of care and later withdraw complete control. Love does not work that way. This does not excuse ingratitude. An adult child should recognize and honor a parent's sacrifices. They should offer care where possible. They should not abandon a vulnerable parent without concern. But their responsibility does not mean you own their life. The middle path avoids both extremes. One extreme says, adult children owe nothing to aging parents. That is cold and irresponsible. The other extreme says, children owe parents complete obedience and unlimited sacrifice forever. That is controlling and unhealthy. Wisdom recognizes mutual responsibility without ownership. You may need help as you age. There is no shame in that. You may need transportation, medical support, assistance with technology, help with finances, or companionship. You can ask clearly, but asking is different from demanding. You can say, "I need help getting to this appointment. Are you available?" That gives the other person space to respond honestly. You do not need to say, "A good child would never make a parent ask." Unspoken expectations create disappointment. Your child may not understand what you need unless you say it. Do not test them by remaining silent and then becoming angry that they failed to read your mind. Communicate directly. At the same time, accept that one child may not be able to meet every need. Build a wider support structure where possible. Do not place your entire future on a single person. Maintain relationships with friends, relatives, neighbors, community members, or support services. Organize practical matters before a crisis. Know where your documents are. Understand your finances. Discuss medical wishes. Keep important contacts accessible. Seek trustworthy professional help where necessary. Planning is not a sign that you distrust your children. It is a sign that you respect reality. Adult children have limits too. They may love you deeply and still have work, health, marriage, and parenting responsibilities. A healthy parent does not demand that a child destroy their own family to prove devotion. Care should be organized wisely. Responsibilities may need to be shared. Professional support may be necessary. Do not turn care into a test of love. When every practical limitation is interpreted as rejection, everyone begins living in guilt. This creates resentment on both sides. You want care given with dignity, not forced through emotional pressure. Another important part of this lesson is learning to stop chasing. Perhaps your adult child becomes distant after a disagreement. You call repeatedly. You send long messages. You ask relatives to intervene. You apologize for things you do not believe were wrong. You offer money. You promise to change every boundary. You do all of this because silence feels unbearable. But chasing often strengthens an unhealthy imbalance. The other person learns that withdrawal gives them control. You become increasingly desperate. Your dignity weakens. The relationship becomes organized around one person leaving and the other begging. You can reach out calmly. You can say, "I care about our relationship and am willing to discuss what happened respectfully." Then give space. Do not send 10 more messages because no immediate reply arrives. You cannot force reconciliation by increasing pressure. A closed hand does not open because another hand grips it more tightly. Sometimes space allows emotion to settle. Sometimes it reveals that the other person is unwilling to communicate. Both truths are important. Do not confuse self-respect with pride. Pride says, "I will never speak first." Self-respect says, "I am willing to reach out, but I will not beg for basic decency." Pride wants to punish. Self-respect wants clarity. You can make one honest effort. You can admit your part. You can invite dialogue, then allow the other person to choose. Their choice belongs to them. You must also stop making your happiness a reward your children are required to provide. No child, even an adult child, can become the complete source of another person's happiness. That burden is too heavy. When you say, "You are all I have," it may sound loving, but it can feel frightening to the person hearing it. You are telling them that your emotional survival rests on their behavior. Every missed call becomes dangerous. Every disagreement becomes a threat. Every independent decision carries guilt. This is not fair to you or to them. You need a life with more than one source of meaning. Meaning can come from quiet routines, friendship, study, service, spiritual practice, creativity, nature, community, exercise, reading, gardening, reflection, or simply learning to inhabit the present moment. Do not dismiss small pleasures because they do not seem as important as family. A peaceful morning matters. A conversation with a sincere friend matters. A walk matters. A good book matters. A meal enjoyed without anxiety matters. Sitting quietly and feeling your breath matters. These moments are life. Many people miss them because they are waiting for a dramatic sign that they are loved. Your child may not call today, but the sun still rises. The air still enters your lungs. A bird still sings outside. Your body, however imperfect, still carries awareness. Do not ignore what is present because you are obsessed with what is absent. This is the practice of mindfulness. The mind says, "My daughter did not call." That may be true. Then it adds, "Therefore, nobody cares about me." That is a story. The mind says, "My son spent the holiday with his wife's family." That may be true. Then it adds, "I have been replaced." That is an interpretation. The mind says, "They did not ask for my advice." That may be true. Then it adds, "I am useless now." That is attachment speaking. Observe the difference between the event and the story built around it. The story is often where suffering multiplies. You can feel disappointment without turning disappointment into a complete judgment of your worth. You can miss someone without declaring yourself abandoned. You can wish the relationship were closer while still appreciating the life that remains. This is emotional freedom. You may also need to grieve the family you imagined. Every parent carries hopes. You may have imagined your children living nearby. You may have pictured large family gatherings. You may have expected weekly visits, shared holidays, close relationships with grandchildren, and mutual care in old age. Reality may be different. Children move away, relationships break, personalities clash, families become divided. Some children remain distant. Some become overwhelmed by their own lives. Some disappoint you deeply. You must allow yourself to grieve without building your entire identity around the loss. Grief says, "This mattered to me, and it hurts." Bitterness says, "Because this did not happen, nothing good remains." Grief can move. Bitterness becomes a home. Do not make bitterness your final residence. You may have every reason to feel hurt. Still, ask what carrying that hurt every day is doing to your body and mind. Does replaying the injustice create repair? Does telling the same story to every visitor restore the relationship? Does comparing your children with other families bring peace? Usually, it deepens the wound. There comes a time when you must stop feeding the story, even though the event cannot be changed. This is not denial. It is refusing to create fresh suffering from an old wound every morning. Forgiveness may become part of this process. Forgiveness does not mean allowing repeated harm. It does not mean pretending your children behaved well. It does not require immediate reconciliation. It means releasing the demand that the past become different before you allow yourself peace. The past will not change. The apology may never come. The gratitude may never arrive. The person may never fully understand. Will you sacrifice the rest of your life to this absence? At some point, you may need to say, "I wish it had been different, but I will not die fighting reality inside my own mind." That is a profound form of letting go. You can continue protecting yourself, you can maintain boundaries, you can remain cautious, but you stop allowing hatred to occupy the center of your heart. This matters because old age brings a clearer awareness of time. When you are young, years feel endless. You assume there will always be another holiday, another conversation, another opportunity. As you grow older, you understand that time is not guaranteed. This should not create panic. It should create clarity. How do you want to spend the time that remains? Do you want to spend it monitoring who called and who did not? Do you want every morning to begin with resentment? Do you want every family gathering to become a trial where past sacrifices are presented as evidence? Do you want to remain trapped in a role that life has already changed? Or do you want to meet this stage with dignity and awareness? Old age can become a time of deep freedom if you stop trying to control what no longer belongs to you. You may have fewer responsibilities. You may need less social approval. The ambitions that once drove you may have become quieter. This creates space. You can finally examine the habits of your mind. You can notice how much suffering came from trying to be understood by everyone. You can see how often you gave from fear. You can recognize how much energy was spent managing other people's reactions. You can begin putting these burdens down. Your children will continue living according to their own understanding. They may make choices you never would have made. Let life teach them. You can remain loving without following every step. You can remain available without remaining on constant alert. You can offer guidance without demanding obedience. You can care without turning their lives into your permanent mental occupation. This is mature parenthood. Perhaps the final task of raising a child is learning to release them. Not releasing love, releasing control, releasing the expectation that they must complete your life. Releasing the demand that they repay every sacrifice. Releasing the image of who you thought they would become. Releasing the need to remain the center of their world. This release may feel like loss at first, but it can become freedom for both of you. Your child is free to become fully adult. You are free to discover a life beyond constant parental anxiety. The relationship may then become one of companionship rather than control. You speak because you enjoy each other, not because every conversation contains a lesson. You visit because the presence is meaningful, not because attendance is being measured. You help because the help is freely chosen, not because guilt has demanded it. This is a healthier love. It is less dramatic, but more honest. You also need to accept that your adult children may misunderstand your change. When you stop rescuing, they may call you uncaring. When you stop giving money, they may call you selfish. When you develop your own routines, they may say you have become distant. When you refuse to be available at every moment, they may accuse you of changing. Perhaps you have changed. You have begun recognizing that your life also matters. You have learned that self-abandonment is not the same as love. You have understood that boundaries protect relationships from resentment. Do not become cruel, but do not apologize for becoming wiser. You can explain calmly, "I love you, and I also need to take care of my health. I am still here for you, but I cannot solve every problem. I want a close relationship, but it must contain mutual respect. My life cannot revolve around emergencies forever." These are not statements of rejection, they are statements of balance. Balance may feel unfamiliar in a family built on overgiving, but unfamiliar does not mean wrong. You must also take responsibility for the atmosphere you create when your children visit. Do they feel welcomed or immediately judged? Do you listen, or do you turn every conversation into advice? Do you ask about their lives, or only complain about how rarely they visit? Do you make the time together peaceful, or do you use the entire visit to present a list of grievances? Your pain may be valid, but if every visit becomes punishment, visits may become less frequent. This does not mean pretending everything is fine. Difficult issues should be discussed, but choose the right time. Do not greet someone with accusation before they have even entered the room. Do not make grandchildren watch adults argue. Do not use every meal to reopen the same conflict. Create space for ordinary human connection. Drink tea. Ask questions. Listen. Laugh when laughter comes. Let a visit be more than a performance of old pain. Sometimes parents become so focused on receiving respect that they forget to offer warmth. Both matter. Boundaries protect the relationship. Warmth gives the relationship a reason to continue. The middle path contains both. You can be clear and welcoming. You can speak honestly and still be kind. You can refuse a request without making the person feel hated. You can express hurt without attacking their entire character. Instead of saying, "You only care about yourself," say, "I feel hurt," when weeks pass without communication. Instead of saying, "You use me," say, "I am no longer able to provide this level of help." Instead of saying, "You have forgotten your parents," say, "I would value more regular contact. Can we find something realistic?" Speak about behavior and needs rather than condemning the entire person. Condemnation creates defensiveness. Clarity creates the possibility of change. Still, no communication method guarantees a good outcome. Your child may remain defensive. They may reject your request. They may continue a painful pattern. Then, you must decide how you will live without allowing the unresolved relationship to consume everything. This is the final freedom. Not getting every relationship exactly as you want. Living wisely, even when some relationships remain incomplete. Life is full of incompleteness. Conversations end without agreement. People die without apologizing. Families remain complicated. Questions remain unanswered. The mind wants perfect closure, but perfect closure is rare. Peace often comes, not because everything was resolved, but because you stopped demanding that reality become perfect before you could rest. You may say, "I have done what I reasonably can. I have apologized for my part. I have invited respectful communication. I have set necessary boundaries. The rest does not belong to me. This is not giving up. It is recognizing the limit of your control. Your adult children have their path. You have yours. Their path may include learning to appreciate you. It may include experiencing consequences. It may include distance, regret, growth, or eventual reconciliation. You cannot walk that path for them. Your path may include learning to love without clinging, to forgive without surrendering wisdom, to remain open without becoming vulnerable to exploitation, and to create meaning beyond your parental identity. Do not compare your path with someone else's family. You may see parents whose children visit every day. You may see large families celebrating together. You may see grandchildren constantly present. You do not know the full truth of those relationships. Comparison takes another person's visible moment and uses it to condemn your entire life. Stop doing that to yourself. Work with the family you actually have. See what is good. Address what is harmful. Release what you cannot control. Grieve what is missing. Then live. There may still be love available in forms you have overlooked. A neighbor who checks on you. A friend who listens. A relative who remembers. A community that welcomes you. A younger person who values your wisdom. Do not close your heart to all present connection because one expected connection has disappointed you. Family is important, but life is larger than one relationship. The heart can hold many forms of kindness. Allow yourself to receive them. You may also offer kindness beyond your family. There are people who need guidance, companionship, experience, and care. You may volunteer. You may help someone learn. You may support a neighbor. You may share stories with younger generations. You may contribute to a community. Your capacity to matter did not end when your children became adults. But the giving should come from freedom, not desperation. Do not search for another person to depend on you completely. Offer what you can without making usefulness your entire identity. Your worth exists even when you are resting. Your worth exists when nobody asks you for anything. Your worth exists in silence. You do not have to earn the right to exist by constantly serving others. This may be one of the hardest lessons for a parent who spent decades putting themselves last. You are allowed to care for yourself without waiting until everyone else is satisfied. Everyone else may never be satisfied. There will always be another request, another problem, another expectation. If your rest must wait until the whole family needs nothing, you will never rest. If your peace must wait until every child understands you, peace may never come. Begin now. Protect time for your body. Attend to your medical needs. Keep enough financial security. Maintain your home. Create daily routines that support stability. Sit quietly. Read. Walk. Reflect. Let your life contain something other than family tension. These actions may look small, but they restore inner ownership. You are reminding yourself that you still have a life to inhabit. The final years should not be spent proving that you remain useful to your children. You do not need to become an unpaid servant, emergency bank, permanent counselor, or silent victim in order to remain a parent. Parenthood is not erased by a boundary. Love is not erased by a no. A relationship is not automatically destroyed because you stop carrying what another adult must carry. Perhaps one of the greatest gifts you can give your children now is the example of a person who knows how to age with dignity. Let them see someone who loves without begging, someone who helps without becoming controlled, someone who admits mistakes without surrendering self-respect, someone who can be alone without becoming bitter, someone who can say no without hatred, someone who can face change without clinging to the past. This example may teach them more than another rescue ever could. Your children are also growing older. One day, they may face the same questions with their own children. They may remember how you handled this stage. Did you use guilt? Did you demand repayment? Did you become controlling? Did you surrender every boundary? Or did you show them that mature love contains both tenderness and freedom? You cannot control what lesson they take, but you can choose what example you offer. Love them. Wish them well. Celebrate what is good in them. Speak honestly about what causes harm. Help when help is wise. Step back when stepping back is necessary. Forgive where forgiveness releases your heart. Remain cautious where trust has been broken. Do not turn caution into hatred. Do not turn love into blindness. Do not turn sacrifice into a weapon. Do not turn loneliness into desperation. Do not turn age into helplessness before helplessness is real. You still have choices. You still have a voice. You still have an inner world that nobody else is entitled to control. Your children may influence your emotions because you love them. That is natural. But they should not become the rulers of your peace. If their approval determines whether you feel worthy, you are not free. If every disagreement destroys your week, you are not free. If every request produces panic because you fear losing them, you are not free. Freedom does not mean you become unaffected by love. It means your love is no longer chained to fear. You can say, "I love you, but I cannot do this." You can say, "I want a relationship with you, but not at the cost of repeated disrespect." You can say, "I am sorry for my mistakes, but I will not spend the rest of my life punishing myself." You can say, "I am here to support you, but your life remains your responsibility." You can say, "I miss you, but I will not beg for attention." These sentences carry both compassion and strength. This is the middle path. Not becoming emotionally cold, not becoming endlessly available, not controlling, not surrendering, remaining close enough to love and free enough to see clearly. The relationship may still contain difficulty. There may be disagreements. There may be seasons of distance. There may be wounds that take time to heal. Do not expect perfection. The aim is not a family without conflict. The aim is a mind that does not lose all wisdom when conflict appears. You will sometimes overreact. You may sometimes give too much. You may sometimes withdraw too far. Notice it. Correct it. The Buddhist path is practice, not perfection. Return to awareness. Ask what fear is doing. Ask what attachment is demanding. Ask what wise compassion would do now. Then take the next appropriate step. One day, every family role will end. The parent and child identities are temporary forms within a changing life. This truth may sound sad, but it can create urgency to love more honestly. Why waste the remaining time on control? Why spend years fighting for approval? Why keep repeating the same argument? Why hold every past mistake as evidence? Life is moving. Your body is changing. Their bodies are changing. The grandchildren are growing. Nothing remains exactly as it was. Let this understanding soften you, but do not let it weaken your discernment. Impermanence does not mean accepting abuse because time is short. It means refusing to waste time in patterns that destroy dignity. It means apologizing before pride creates permanent distance. It means setting boundaries before resentment poisons love. It means appreciating a good visit instead of using it to complain about the previous absence. It means saying what matters while there is still time. Perhaps you need to tell your children that you love them without adding a demand afterward. Perhaps you need to apologize for being controlling. Perhaps you need to stop financing their irresponsibility. Perhaps you need to ask for more respectful contact. Perhaps you need to forgive yourself for not being a perfect parent. Perhaps you need to stop waiting for gratitude. Only you can examine what is required. But whatever you do, do it consciously. Do not allow fear to make the decision. Do not let guilt speak in the voice of love. Do not let loneliness decide what treatment you accept. Do not allow money to become your only language of care. Do not keep carrying problems that belong to other adults. Do not explain every boundary until your no disappears. And do not give the ownership of your final years to anyone. Your adult children may be deeply important to you, but your life still belongs to the present moment. Wake up and remember that you are here. Feel the morning. Care for the body that has carried you through decades. Notice the simple things that still exist. Let silence become a companion rather than an enemy. Build relationships that contain respect. Use your resources wisely. Offer kindness where it is received sincerely. Protect your energy from repeated chaos. Do not sit in a mental waiting room for someone else to become different. Live the life that remains. Your children have their own lessons. They may learn through wisdom. They may learn through mistakes. They may learn late. They may never understand everything you hoped they would understand. Release the demand that their awakening happen according to your schedule. You planted what you could. You watered what you could. You protected what you could. But every living being eventually grows according to conditions beyond the gardener's control. Some trees grow straight. Some bend toward unexpected light. Some bear fruit late. Some struggle through difficult seasons. The gardener cannot force every branch. At some point, the gardener must step back and allow life to continue. This is not failure, it is completion. You have been the protector. Now learn to be the witness. You have been the provider. Now learn to receive life as it is. You have spent decades carrying others. Now put down what no longer belongs to you. You are allowed to enjoy your remaining years without asking your children for permission. You are allowed to create peace, even when they are still confused. You are allowed to stop proving yourself. You are allowed to love without disappearing. You are allowed to remain a parent without remaining a prisoner of parenthood. Keep your heart open. Keep your mind clear. Help without fear. Refuse without hatred. Forgive without returning blindly to the same wound. Speak without controlling. Listen without absorbing every problem. Remain available without abandoning your own life. Your children are part of your journey. They are not the destination of your entire existence. Walk beside them when the path allows. Let them walk alone when they must. And continue walking your own path with awareness, dignity, and peace. Your adult children have their lives. You still have yours. Do not waste what remains. You have spent much of your life giving. You gave your time when you were tired. You gave your strength when nobody noticed. You gave money you had worked hard to earn. You worried through sleepless nights. You carried responsibilities that your children may never fully understand. You made mistakes, but you also made sacrifices. You were not perfect, because no parent is perfect, but you did what you knew how to do with the awareness, resources, and emotional strength you had at the time. Now your children are adults, and the relationship must change. You can still love them deeply, but you do not have to surrender your peace to prove that love. You do not have to let guilt force you into endless sacrifice. You do not have to accept disrespect because you are afraid of loneliness. You do not have to give away your financial security so that nobody calls you selfish. You do not have to make their problems the center of every day. You do not have to tolerate manipulation through your grandchildren. You do not have to defend every boundary until exhaustion turns your no into another unwilling yes. Most importantly, you do not have to give your adult children ownership of the years you still have left. The Buddhist path is not a path of weakness. It does not ask you to let others harm you while you remain silent and call it compassion. Compassion without wisdom can become self-destruction. Generosity without discernment can strengthen greed. Forgiveness without boundaries can invite the same wound again. Patience without clarity can become permission for mistreatment. True compassion includes everyone involved. It includes your children, but it also includes you. Your health matters, your savings matter, your home matters, your emotional energy matters, your time matters, your dignity matters, your peace matters. Protecting these things does not make you selfish. It means you understand that your life still carries value. You may have been taught that a good parent always gives, always forgives, always remains available, and never refuses a child. But an adult child is no longer a helpless child. They are responsible for their own conduct, decisions, finances, relationships, and consequences. Continuing to rescue them from everything may not be love. It may be preventing them from developing the strength that adulthood requires. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is, "I believe you can handle this." Sometimes the wisest answer is, "I cannot help in the way you are asking." Sometimes compassion means offering support. Sometimes it means stepping back. Sometimes it means listening without interfering. Sometimes it means ending a conversation when disrespect begins. Sometimes it means allowing another adult to feel disappointed. Their disappointment does not automatically mean you have failed them. Their anger does not automatically mean your boundary is wrong. Their silence does not automatically mean you must chase them. Their opinion of you is not the final truth about who you are. You must stop measuring your worth through the reactions of people who may benefit from your lack of boundaries. If someone calls you loving only when you agree, that is not stable love. If someone is warm only when you give money, pay attention. If someone respects you only when you remain silent, that is not respect. If access to family is used as a reward for obedience, that is not healthy closeness. You do not need to respond with hatred. You do not need revenge. You do not need to punish anyone. You only need to see clearly. Clarity is one of the greatest protections you can develop in old age. See what is truly happening. See where you have been generous. See where you have been afraid. See where your children may be struggling. See where they may be taking advantage. See where you need to apologize. See where you need to stop apologizing. See where reconciliation is possible. See where distance may be necessary. See your own attachment without shame, because awareness is not condemnation. Awareness gives you the opportunity to choose differently. You may still feel guilt after saying no. You may still feel lonely after ending a disrespectful conversation. You may still feel afraid when someone becomes distant. You may still miss your grandchildren. You may still worry about your children's future. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to stop allowing every emotion to control your behavior. A feeling can be present without becoming a command. Fear may arise, but you do not have to surrender. Guilt may arise, but you do not have to pay an endless emotional debt. Sadness may arise, but you do not have to abandon your dignity to make it disappear. Loneliness may arise, but you do not have to accept humiliation to avoid it. This is practice. This is where Buddhist wisdom becomes real, not in peaceful words spoken when nothing is at stake, but in the moment when someone you love becomes angry and you remain calm enough to act wisely. In the moment when you want to chase, explain, give, rescue, or apologize, but you pause long enough to ask whether the action will truly reduce suffering. That pause can change your life. Before answering a demand, pause. Before transferring money, pause. Before entering another family conflict, pause. Before believing every accusation, pause. Before sacrificing your needs, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from compassion, wisdom, and freedom, or am I acting from guilt, fear, and attachment? Be honest about the answer. You do not have to become harsh to become strong. You can speak gently. You can keep your heart open. You can wish your children happiness. You can help when help is wise. You can forgive their mistakes. But you can also refuse to participate in patterns that repeatedly harm you. You can say, "I love you, but I will not lend more money." You can say, "I want a relationship with you, but I will not accept insults." You can say, "I care about your problem, but I cannot solve it for you." You can say, "I love my grandchildren, but I will not make decisions under threats." You can say, "I have explained my boundary and I will not continue arguing." You can say, "My life still belongs to me." These words are not rejection. They are the language of mature love. Mature love is not desperate. It does not bargain for attention. It does not purchase closeness. It does not destroy itself to avoid disappointment. It remains compassionate, but it also remains awake. Your children may not understand your change immediately. They may say you have become different. They may accuse you of selfishness because you are no longer endlessly available. They may resist because the old pattern benefited them. Let them have their reaction. You do not need to become cruel, but you also do not need to return to an unhealthy pattern simply because change is uncomfortable. A relationship that is real can adjust to reasonable boundaries. A relationship built mainly on access, money, rescue, or control may become weaker when those things are removed. That truth can be painful, but it is still better than spending your remaining years buying an illusion. Do not chase people who only come when they need something. Do not punish them either. Observe, respond appropriately, protect yourself, then continue living. Do not sit beside the phone waiting for someone else to decide whether your day has value. Do not spend every morning replaying old conversations. Do not compare your family with other families. Do not allow one difficult relationship to blind you to every form of kindness still available in your life. Your life is larger than the attention of your children. There may be friends who value you. There may be neighbors who respect you. There may be people in your community who can benefit from your experience. There may be books you have not read, places you have not visited, conversations you have not had, and quiet moments you have never allowed yourself to enjoy. You are still here. That matters. Old age is not only a season of loss, it can also be a season of release. You can release the need to prove you were a perfect parent. You can release the belief that sacrifice must always be repaid. You can release the responsibility for choices that belong to other adults. You can release the need to control how your children see you. You can release the expectation that they must complete your life. You can release resentment without removing wisdom. You can release hatred without reopening every door. You can release attachment without releasing love. This is freedom. Freedom is not saying, I no longer care. Freedom is saying, I care, but I will not destroy myself trying to control what I cannot control. Your children have their own path. They may learn quickly. They may learn slowly. They may understand your sacrifices one day. They may never understand them completely. They may grow closer. They may remain distant. You cannot control the timing of another person's maturity. You can only choose the quality of your own mind. Choose clarity instead of confusion. Choose dignity instead of desperation. Choose wise generosity instead of fearful giving. Choose honest boundaries instead of silent resentment. Choose compassion without self-abandonment. Choose peace without pretending that nothing hurts. And remember that saying no does not erase your love. Stepping back does not erase your history. Protecting your health does not make you selfish. Keeping your savings does not make you greedy. Refusing disrespect does not make you cruel. Building a life beyond your children does not mean you have stopped being a parent. It means you have understood that parenthood is one part of your life, not the owner of your entire existence. You have carried enough. Put down what no longer belongs to you. Let your adult children carry their own choices, their own responsibilities, and their own consequences. Remain available where your help is healthy, but stop standing between them and every lesson life is trying to teach. Then turn toward the life that is still in front of you. Care for your body. Protect your home. Use your resources wisely. Speak with people who bring sincerity. Create peaceful routines. Sit in silence without fearing it. Let the present moment become more important than the approval you keep chasing. You cannot change every mistake from the past. You cannot guarantee harmony in the future. But you can act wisely now. That is enough. Love your children, but do not become their servant. Forgive them, but do not volunteer for the same wound again. Support them, but do not carry their entire lives. Listen to them, but do not surrender your judgment. Keep your heart open, but keep your eyes open too. Your adult children have their lives. You still have yours. Whatever remains, live it with awareness, live it with compassion, live it with dignity, and do not give your final years away through fear.